Good afternoon, ma'am.
Namaskar. Good afternoon.
नमस्कार नमस्कार
So, ma'am, how are you?
I'm fine. आप कैसे?
बिल्कुल ठीक है मैम, आपका good to see Dr. Manwani. I deeply regret for this delay, and I must appreciate and salute to Dr. Nishu Roy. The way she was after me, I was already this small, and she's wonderful, undoubtedly.
She is always
Thank
after.
She's getting, she is, getting guidance of Santosh ma'am,
Madam and
Pinto
sir.
sir, मानवानी
And
सर, धर सर का जिसके सर पे हाथ होता है वो बच्चा हमेशा ग्रो करता है. So as am I.
I fully agree with you.
Thank you, sir.
आप कैसी है मैडम?
बस आशीर्वाद है सर आपका. सही चल रहा है, कोशिश कर रहे हैं. ISTD में जो आपने जिम्मेदारी दी है उसमें लगे हुए हैं.
We don't any option. We have to do it.
Yes, that's what I'm doing it with a smiling face. That's what we being taught throughout.
यही तो खूबी है आपकी.
Thank you so much, sir.
आप मुस्कुराते ही मार देते हैं.
क्या बात है सर. Ma'am, sir has also joined, I guess. So, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
afternoon.
Happy afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Happy afternoon. कैसे हैं?
बस आपका आशीर्वाद है.
तो शुरू करना चाहिए. As everybody has come. Neetaji has come.
Yes, sir.
I can't see Neetaji.
Sir, Anita ma'am has joined. Yeah. Manwani sir has joined. Vinod Dumblekar sir has joined.
Anita को मैं
ma'am
देख नहीं पा. Is she there? National President is there.
Yes, sir, but we recently talking to her. Yeah. Anita
You-
ma'am.
I will call her.
डुम्बरेकर जी नमस्कार.
Good morning, good morning.
Pranam sir.
Good morning.
Cricket, I was out.
Good morning, good morning.
नमस्कार.
Yes, sir.
कैसे हैं?
बस आशीर्वाद सर आप.
तो शुरू किया जाए.
Sorry.
Start. Should we start? प्रोग्राम शुरू करें.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. With your permission.
Okay. करिए.
Thank you, sir. A very good afternoon. Today's chief guest, Ms. Anita Chauhan, National President, Indian Society for Training and Development, New Delhi. Dr. Upinder Dhar, former National President, ISTD, and Honorable Vice Chancellor, Shri Vaishnav Vidyapeeth Vishwavidyalaya, Indore. Dr. Santosh Dhar, National Council Member, ISTD, Rector and Dean, Faculty of Doctoral Studies and Research. Dr. Rishu Roy, Chairperson, ISTD, Indore. Dr. Mandeep Gill, Vice Chairperson, ISTD, Indore. All honored dignitaries, session chairs, distinguished subject experts, and speakers. It is a great pleasure and excitement that we gather here in this intellectual congregation and have the immense privilege to contribute the collective body of knowledge that derives progress and innovation in our respective fields. Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, and working together is success. This is famous quote by Edward Everett Hale. Do your little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good put together that overwhelm the world. This is by the Desmond Tutu. With these famous two quotes, I would like to welcome you all in one-day virtual convention on simulation, future of learning and development organized by Indian Society for Training and Development, Indore, in association with Shri Vaishnav Vidyapeeth Vishwavidyalaya, Indore. ओम शुभम करोति कल्याणम आरोग्यम धन संपदा शत्रु बुद्धि विनाशाय दीपम ज्योति नमस्तुते. Without the blessing of God Almighty, no work is motivated or convinced. I now ask the technical team to invoke Goddess Saraswati by virtually lighting the lamp of knowledge and wisdom and playing the Saraswati Vandana in order to make this convention fortunate. Parveez sir.
असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्युर्मामृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति. या कुन्देन्दुतुषारहारधवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रावृता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युतशङ्करप्रभृतिभिः देवैः सदा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निःशेषजाड्यापहा.
Thank you so much, technical team. May I now request Dr. Upinder Dhar, former National President ISTD and Honorable Vice Chancellor Shri Vaishnav Vidyapeeth Vishwavidyalaya for the virtual welcome of today's chief guest, Ms. Anita Chauhan.
Ma'am, please unmute yourself, Shweta ma'am.
Sorry. May I now request and invite Dr. Santosh Dhar ma'am, National Council member ISTD, Rector and Dean Faculty of Doctoral Studies and Research for the orientation of August audience about ISTD Convention. Over to you, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Shweta. Honorable Vice Chancellor of Shri Vaishnav Vidyapeeth Vishwavidyalaya and former National President ISTD, Dr. Upinder Dhar, Chief Guest on the occasion and National President ISTD, Ms. Anita Chauhan ji, Dr. Rishu Rai, Chairperson ISTD Indore Chapter, Vice Chairperson ISTD Indore Chapter, Dr. Mandeep Gill, Past Chairperson, Dr. D.T. Manwani, Session Chair of Plenary Session, Dr. Vinod Dublekar, our esteemed resource persons for the plenary sessions, and the members of ISTD Indore Chapter, a warm welcome to Regional Convention on the theme Simulation, Future of Learning and Development. Simulation-based learning is a form of experiential learning that provides learners with a real-world-like opportunity to develop and practice their knowledge and skills, but in a simulated environment. Simulation is a powerful learning tool and has sought more attention in recent years. Experiential learning encourages higher-order learning, which promotes critical thinking abilities and self-directed learning. Learners involved in experiential learning have a greater understanding of their subject matter than learners in a traditional lecture. Learners exposed to experiential learning methods are perceived as more competent practitioners than learners in classes without these methods. Simulations engage an audience in an active learning where participants learn from each other. In business-related classes, simulations can be used to model the development of business enterprises. The effective form of learning is learning based on experiential exercises. While the information conveyed by textbooks and in lectures is important, business managers must know how to make decisions. In this regard, simulation users assume that active involvement allows game participants to develop and improve their decision-making skills. Traditionally, game performance outcomes such as earnings per share, return on investment, or sales are used as measures of decision-making skill. The relationship between skill level and performance level is considered to be positive in nature. When a player outperforms the competition, it is assumed that the winner has made decisions that are more consistent by the game parameters than those made by other simulation participants. By making decisions that are more consistent with the environment defined by the game parameters, it is assumed that game player has learned how best to adapt to the simulation environment. This assumption becomes even more valid when examining simulation games that are dynamically interactive. Such games provide a changing environment based on the decision inputs from various competitors, thus teaching decision making under conditions of uncertainty. Game is an activity where participants are active and someone is winning or losing to demonstrate a viewpoint. Simulations are more involving taking a role and trying to solve a problem or work through an event. In a case study, we don't look inside or outside. No roles are given. Part of the goal of simulation is to put participants in a situation where they are actively involved. Simulations are best as they are ideal for developing an understanding of big ideas and concepts, those things for which experience alone can deepen understanding. The objective of this convention is to deliberate upon how simulation can serve the specific needs. It's a platform for practitioners to share their perspectives, how simulations can be powerful tools in training and development. With these words, I once again extend my warm welcome to all the participants to this convention. Thank you so much. Over to Shweta.
Thank you so much. Some are famous for their skills and talents, while others are distinguished by their courage or profound impact on society. But one thing many of the world's most successful people have in common is their ability to inspire others. And this is absolutely correct in the context of our respected Dr. Upinder Dhar, former National President, ISTD, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Shri Vaishnav Vidyapeeth Vishwavidyalaya, Indore. Without further ado, sir, I cordially invite you to deliver the welcome address for the one-day virtual convention organized by STD. Welcome you, sir, and over to you, sir.
Good afternoon to all of you. At the outset, I would like to welcome National President Anita Ji Chauhan and all other resource persons of this convention. In fact, with Indore management in this ISTD Indore chapter, this has become a convention to organize at least one regional convention every year. For years together, it has been happening. I'm happy that this year the theme chosen is on simulation and gaming. Why? Because gaming technology is seen as the future of training. There's a lot of literature available these days which emphasizes on gaming technology as future of training. For realistic training, simulations need to accurately depict how real assets act in a real environment. Today, Lockheed Martin, if we take an example, is changing the game when it comes to increased simulation realism with help from Unreal Engine. See, this statement is very important. Increased simulation realism, simulation realism with the help from Unreal Engine. Unreal Engine, an open and advanced 3D game engine developed by Epic Games, is engaged in a long-term research and development with Lockheed Martin to create more realistic simulation solutions. This technology capitalizes on commercial game engine advancements for an integrated, scalable architecture that leverages an extensible plug-in framework for future training and visualization efforts. Lockheed Martin builds and delivers all sorts of technologies to customers around the world. This collaboration brings commercial and aerospace technologies together to increase customer readiness. So if we take this as an example, it gives us an idea, it's an indicative, it is indicative of increased use of gaming and training. Adam Breed, strategic technologies architect at Lockheed Martin, is focused on simulation and training by making Lockheed Martin's products the best in the industry and effectively creating a safer and better world. When Unreal Engine comes into play, it allows Lockheed Martin to lead ahead and focus on the things that we are good at doing. For instance, integrating avionics systems and creating immersive learning environments. Adam says, if we go by his words, Unreal Engine can support us with visualizations, the architecture of gaming and simulation environments. As a result, we can utilize what Lockheed Martin brings to the table while leveraging the best of the gaming industry to make it a security-oriented product. This is what Adam says. When Unreal Engine comes into play, it allows Lockheed Martin to lead ahead and focus on the things that we are good at doing. For instance, integrating avionics systems and creating immersive learning environments. So I had deliberately repeated because this is what is important in today's learning environment. The idea that game-based experiences are only used. Am I audible? Am I audible? Okay.
Yes, sir.
The idea that game-based experiences are only used for entertainment is no longer the case. See, initially, earlier, we believed that game-based experiences are more for the entertainment, but it is no more true now. Similar to how the aerospace industry, I have taken an example, is rapidly evolving with the new technology. Game engine technology is also changing. The gaming capabilities that were previously used for entertainment can now be used to teach operational personnel, operational executives, the same thing that is entertaining can also be educational in nature. Trainees are used to seeing these crystal clear visuals in today's commercial video games. So they now expect to see the same eye-catching eye-catching realism in the simulations Lockheed Martin delivers. Lockheed Martin is focused on providing training in a lot of ways. The game engine technology has advanced so fast, and those lines have now blurred significantly. Breed said, if we take the quote of Breed, it says concepts like photorealistic worlds make better educated pilots and operators. The more real it is, the easier it is to educate somebody. One of the big differences of utilizing Unreal Engine is that you typically use to have build very isolated experience, each separate from one another. You either build a ground vehicle training device that was focused on very high quality visuals that were from the ground perspective, or would focus on large scale perspectives or flight training. This used to be done differently because the engines were only optimized to go one way. By leveraging next generation training solutions from Lockheed Martin with Unreal Engine at their core, customers reap all new benefits. The open nature of Unreal Engine allows us to create bits and pieces and swap them out when needed. This allows Lockheed Martin to develop more partnerships with more of the commercial industry for larger scale applications. Now, with the help of Unreal Engine's innovative technologies, Lockheed Martin can bring it all together to create a joint world with higher fidelity and better visuals. In turn, this brings gaming technology and simulations to the aerospace community across the world to support their increased mission readiness. I have taken it as an illustration. But now, what is important to understand that it is not, this gaming and simulation is not restricted to a particular industry only. Our Dr. Manwani has worked in aerospace industry. So for years, simulation gaming is used in aerospace technology. But what is important to understand now is that it is entering many other segments of training. Even in human resource training, simulation and games are conspicuously and very significantly entering. So simulation, games, now the latest development is with the generative artificial intelligence. Such simulations and games are going to be more in use. Therefore, all trainers, since ISTD is the body of trainers and developers in the country, which is basically meant for training and development. Here, we need to educate ourselves. All trainers need to get educated and get trained and be ready for such interventions. We cannot restrict ourselves to the traditional training techniques only. We need to go beyond. We need to expand. And gaming and simulation is one of the major, important and major areas which is emerging in training. So that's why in the beginning I said that gaming technology, in fact, gaming and simulation is going to be the future of training. So with these words, I once again welcome Anita ji and all other resource persons and their delegates, members of ISTD who have joined this convention today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your wisdom words. Everything when it comes from you, it always coming with more added value, sir. Thank you so much, sir. This is a very fortunate day when Miss Anita Chauhan, National President ISTD, is with us. It gives me immense pleasure in expressing my heartfelt gratitude, Miss Anita Chauhan, ma'am, for accepting invitation and giving her valuable time besides her very busy schedule. A seasoned professional with over 22 years of diverse experience, she is currently leading this Indian Society for Training and Development as its National President 2022-24. In addition, she holds position on the board of International Federation of Training and Development Organization and co-chair their Committee for Women and Youth Empowerment and Entrepreneurship governing board members in management and entrepreneurship and professional skills council of India. Her career began in education, fostering a lifelong passion for learning and development. This foundation proved invaluable as she transitioned to a corporate world of where she honed her leadership and business acumen. Previously, she held positions such as Regional Vice President for ISTD, where she led the Kota chapter to be organized as a best small chapter. Ms. Anita Chauhan is fueled by a desire to make a positive social impact, founded the Kota Gyan Dwar Education Society, a thriving NGO actively working to empowering individuals and contributing to social betterment, women's empowerment, environmental conservation, and community development. Ms. Anita Chauhan is dedicated to social causes and community development. She is advocating the promotion of eye donation. Ms. Anita Chauhan has great recognition as champion of ancient wisdom, water warrior, COVID-19 hero, environmental leader, smart city visionary, and the list is open-ended. Ms. Anita Chauhan is a recipient of number of prestigious awards like Mahabodhi NSDC CSR Conclave 2023 Award, Woman of Substance Award Year 2024, Kota Ratna Award. Ms. Anita Chauhan is a blend of modern and traditional value, shapes her approach as a trainer, social entrepreneur, and dynamic leader. Heartiest welcome to you, ma'am. It's an honor for each one of us that we are able to meet you virtually, ma'am. I would like to request you, ma'am, kindly enlighten us with your wisdom words. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. It's been a long description, long thing. I'm overwhelmed. Thank you so very much. First of all, I am really, I feel privileged to having been here and with a great honor and respect to Dr. Upinder Jha sir. आपके आशीर्वाद और आपके बताए कुछ प्रिंसिपल्स को फॉलो करते हुए आज यहाँ तक पहुंची हूँ, तो आपको कोटि कोटि धन्यवाद, डॉक्टर मानवानी and Dr. Santosh Dhar, who have been always a guiding light to each one of us, and undoubtedly the team under the able leadership of Dr. Rishu Roy, जो कि आपको भी मौका मिला है मैम उपिंदर झा सर के उसमें आपको तराश रहे हैं जैसे वो, and I'm very much sure this chapter is going to do wonders as usual जो आप कर रहे हो. It's always being there. जब आपके सर पे बड़ों का आशीर्वाद और साथ रहता है, so you cannot think about कि हम कहाँ पीछे रह जाएंगे. तो thank you for having me out here today on this special day. So all the dignitaries who are here, we are going to listen to you all today, and all the lovely participants across India, members of Indore chapter, and the entire team of organizing our committee of this conclave, and undoubtedly 24 into support to Upinder Jha sir, and that is the university's members, all the staff and everyone. A very good afternoon to you all. आप सभी को मेरा कोटि कोटि धन्यवाद और आप सभी का स्वागत अभिनंदन करती हूँ. मुझे बहुत बेहतरीन लगता है when ISTD इंदौर चैप्टर की जो इवेंट्स होते हैं, they set a good line for other chapters also to follow. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, today I really stand before you to shed light on a transformative approach to learning and development, and that is simulation learning. Ab simulation learning mein, once you have already heard Dr. Santosh Dhar, then you hear Dr. Upendra Dhar sir. So what is being left behind, sir? आपके बाद बोलना तो मतलब एक थोड़ा अजीब है, क्या मैं बोलूं, but still आपके आदर्शों को फॉलो करते हुए आपसे सीखा जो है उस आधार पे थोड़ा सा प्रिपरेशन. I'll just share my views on this topic today. So, dear friends, in this rapidly evolving world where the demand for skilled professionals is constantly on the rise, and simulation learning emerges as a beacon of innovation, offering unparalleled opportunities for the growth and the mastery. So, friends, just imagine करिए आप लोग लाइफ में कभी just imagine a scenario where a surgeon perfects their craft without risking the life of a patient. Or just imagine a pilot that hones their skills in the cockpit without ever leaving the ground. And this is the power of simulation learning. That's what I feel, right? A method that provides a safe and controlled environment for the individuals to learn, experiment, and of course, to grow. At its core, simulation learning is about bridging the gap between the theory and the practice, and it allows learners to immerse themselves into realistic scenarios where they can apply their own knowledge, they can make their decisions, right, and witness the consequences of their actions in real time. क्योंकि हम रोजमर्रा की लाइफ में that we really experience and we really face also, and then we really witness, and these all things keeps us going. That's what I feel. So the experiential learning approach not only enhances the retention but also fosters the critical thinking and problem solving, and on the top, the decision making skills, that qualities that are indispensable in today's dynamic workforce, which is the most sought after qualities which we actually look for are the dynamic workforce. So friends, the benefits of simulation learning are manifold, and for the starters like me, it offers a risk-free environment where learners can really make mistakes. We can make mistakes without a fear of real-world repercussions. आप गलती करो और गलती करने के बाद आपको थोड़ा सा एक मन में भय रहता है, but that you know that गलतियां ही आपको आगे बढ़ने के लिए नया वो कहते हैं ना एक्सपीरियंस देती हैं, and then you learn. So once you get that risk-free environment where learners really can make mistakes without a fear of real-world repercussions, this freedom to fail is essential for the fostering creativity and innovation, and it encourages, what I believe, that it encourages individuals like me also to push the boundaries of their knowledge and explore the new possibilities. Once we explore the new possibilities, we really learn, like anything, and then we grow. जब हम possibilities को explore करते हैं तभी हमें आगे बढ़ने का अवसर मिलता है. That's what I think. So moreover, simulation learning is inherently engaging by simulating the real world situations in a captivates learner's attention and instills a sense of urgency, and that with a purpose. Complex business scenario, simulation learning keeps learners on their toes, driving active participation and deep engagement. Because that's what I am really experiencing this in the present scenario also. So, but perhaps the most compelling aspect of simulation, what I believe, is simulation learning में जो बहुत important जिसको compelling aspect हम कहते हैं, तो what मैं समझती हूँ it's the that versatility which we really learn. From healthcare to aviation, from education to defense services, simulation learning finds applications across a wide range of industries and disciplines. It is not bound for the constraints of traditional learning methods, but instead adapts to a unique needs and challenges of each field. जब आप हर फील्ड के challenges को face करते हो, and then you have this opportunity also that it adapts the unique needs. तो वो adaptation जहाँ आता है तो learning के और भी ज़्यादा what I believe is that avenues और खुल जाते हैं, then you really learn. Friends, of course, I like any learning approach. Simulation learning comes with its own set of challenges. देखिए अब जीवन में हम कुछ भी करते हैं, आगे बढ़ेंगे तो उसके अपने set challenges भी होते हैं, कुछ targets को लेकर जब हम आगे बढ़ते हैं, when we move forward, तो हमें lot of challenges. So yes, simulation learning also comes with its own sets of challenges. What I believe, from the cost of implementation to the need for specialized equipment and expertise. And there are hurdles that must be overcome. However, with the advances in technology and a growing recognition of its values, these challenges are becoming increasingly surmountable. So, looking ahead, जो मैं सोचती हूँ, the future of simulation learning is actually bright. With the advent of virtual reality, augmented reality, and gamification, the possibilities are limitless. These emerging technologies are pushing the boundaries of what is possible, right? Creating immersive and interactive learning experiences that were once unimaginable. हम सोच भी नहीं सकते थे, कभी हमने सोचा भी नहीं था. All those things are now, we are actually learning and we are doing it. So in conclusion, what I believe that simulation learning represents a paradigm shift in how we approach education and development. Now, how do we approach to that? I think how I'll end up is मैं इसको कैसे connect करते हुए, what I believe by providing a safe, engaging, and versatile learning environment. This is how I believe we can think about like in conclusion, like simulation learning represents a paradigm shift. So what approach मुझे लगता है कि providing a safe, engaging, and versatile learning environment, it empowers the individuals to reach to the newer heights of mastery and expertise. ये मुझे लगता है, that's what I feel. Because once you go for your mastery and your expertise, if you really get empowered with a lot of learnings and all, this is what I believe. As we embrace the transformative approach, let's unlock the full potential. It's time to unlock the full potential of simulation learning and usher in a new era of growth and innovation. So, simulation learning के लिए आगे बढ़ते हुए, when we have transformative approach के साथ जब हम आगे बढ़ेंगे, so I understand it will this will give you abundance, lot of satisfaction end of the day, and that gives you a lot of new avenues to move forward, to learn. आप अपने trainees को for the trainees and for yourself, I take it for yourself, for myself. So when you go in this way, so it really empowers. And I am learning that. So I can assure this is what I feel. It empowers the individuals. Societies like Indian Society for Training and Development, our society, such bodies can really take such things to और आगे हम लेके जाएंगे, so we can really bring the desired change. And we can really contribute towards the nation building. That's what I understand. As a society as a whole, simulation learning will definitely help us, and it will help us in this paradigm shift to our approach towards education and development. This is what we are meant for. ISTD, we are committed for nation building through learning and development, and I understand this is how I take this perspective of simulation learning this way. And on the top, as I always share, the way we are following, only two things, small, but I think the most powerful is, I always say, we the Indians, हम भारतीयों के अंदर हमारे डीएनए में बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण चीज है जो हमें ईश्वर द्वारा प्रदत्त है प्रत्येक भारतीय में. That I always say is, देने की कला है हमारे पास. So the art of giving what we have in our DNA, so that we have light examples. ऋषि दधीची ने तो अपनी अस्थियों का ही दान कर दिया था. So that art of giving, practicing that art of giving in the societies like us. And another principle which I always stress upon is your return. Ma'am, आपने अभी बात की थी, we were talking about ROI, that is return on investment पे हम बात कर रहे थे, तो मैं उसको थोड़ा सा चेंज करते में हमेशा से मैं बोलती हूँ, और मैं चाहती हूँ कि जिस तरह से ISTD का प्रत्येक सदस्य इसकी ओर बढ़े, मैं विश्वविद्यालय परिवार से भी निवेदन करूंगी कि इन छोटे से दो प्रिंसिपल्स को अगर आपके माध्यम से भी कहा जाएगा, तो रिटर्न ऑन एसोसिएशन, your association with the family, your association with your organization, with your colleagues, with your friends, with your society. उसके साथ once you get associated, what do you give? What do you get out of it? हम हमेशा देखते हैं कि रिटर्न इन्वेस्टमेंट पे आपको क्या रिटर्न आया. So मैं तो हमेशा कहती हूँ, you please focus on return on your association, following the principle of art of गिविंग. अगर हम इन दो प्रिंसिपल्स को लेके आगे बढ़ते हैं, दोस्तों, मेरे हिसाब से जीवन में कहीं कोई क्षण, कहीं कोई पल ऐसा नहीं होगा जहां पर हम आगे बढ़ने से स्वयं को रोक पाएंगे, या अपना छोटा सा जो कंट्रीब्यूशन है ना राष्ट्र निर्माण में, मैं कहती हूँ हम कुछ करें ना करें, लेकिन हमारे समय में, हमारे टाइम पे व्हाट वी गिव इज एक गिलहरी वाला जो योगदान है राम सेतु में दिया था, वैसा योगदान हम हमारे माध्यम से दे पाएंगे. This is what I say, and this is all from my side. I know I'm going to stretch it out for a longer time. Thank you very much for having me here today, and thank you. That's all from me from this side. Thank you. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable, motivated and insightful words for simulation and its scope in the coming future. Your words are inspiring all of us. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now, I would like to request Dr. Rishi Roy, ma'am, Chairperson ISTD Indore, for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Shweta. I would like to thank you, ma'am. It was really a very motivating session, and we learned a new terminology, that is ROA, that is return on association. It's really my privilege to propose vote of thanks on behalf of Management Committee of ISTD Indore chapter. My heartfelt thanks to the chief guest on the occasion, Ms. Anita Chauhan, for enlightening us regarding the paradigm shift and bridging the gap between theory and practical by mimicking real-world scenarios and offering various benefits with regards to simulation, that is experiential learning, in a more secure environment, risk-free environment, which consequently lead to improvised decision making. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for sparing your valuable time. I'm privileged to thank former President ISTD and Honorable Vice Chancellor Shri Vaishnav Vidyapeeth Vishwavidyalaya, Dr. Upinder Thar, for always acting as a catalyst in every bit of work we do. Sir, your commitment towards your work is invaluable, which inspires all of us to be persistent in our efforts. My heartfelt thanks to all the HOI and HODs of the constituent institutes, distinguished faculty members, staff members, and my dear students for their presence and participation. Finally, and most importantly, I would like to thank all the members of ISTD whose presence have made this event amazing ones. Over to Shweta ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. As we are moving ahead and reaching towards the end of this inaugural ceremony of one-day virtual convention on simulation, future of learning and development, organized by Indian Society for Training and Development Indore, in association with Sri Vaishnav Vidyapith Vishwavidyalaya Indore. We also reaching to the onset of plenary session 1 and 2 of this convention. But this is a time for concluding inaugural ceremony by national anthem. Now I would like to request all the people present, please rise up for national anthem. I request your technical team to play the national anthem.
गणमन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Bharat Mata ki jai, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. Thank you, technical team.
I would
Thank
like to add upon one thing. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, Jai ISTD.
Jai ISTD. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Anita ji. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you all for your giving your valuable time. And with this, I would like to take permission from Dr. Upender Dhar sir and Miss Anita ma'am. Can I proceed for the further plenary session of this convention?
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, sure. Thank you.
I request to all of you kindly stay on the link as we are starting the first plenary session of this convention. With a brief introduction of session chair, Dr. D.T. Manwani, CEO Quantile Analytics Private Limited, Indore. Respected sir, kindly allow.
Please.
Thank you, sir. Dr. D.T. Manwani is a well-known motivational speaker and team builder. He is also the founder and managing director of Quantile Analytics Private Limited since 2015. He has also done various projects on corporate training and consultancy in productivity, quality, and cost management. Having more than 4 decades of experience in industry and academia, he is a PhD guide, management with DAVV and Pacific University, Udaipur. Thank you so much, sir, for being there in convention.
Thank you.
Further, with due permission of session chair, Dr. D.T. Manwani, sir, shall I proceed and invite first speaker of plenary session 1, Dr. Ramesh Sharma, Director, Human Resource Development Center, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar University, Delhi.
Please.
Good afternoon, sir, and heartiest welcome to you, sir. Dr. Ramesh Sharma is the Director of Human Resource Development Center and Faculty of Instructional Design and Chairperson of the committee to facilitate adoption of MOOCs for SWAYAM, Platform of Government of India at Dr. B.R. Ambedkar University, Delhi, India. Sir has served in national and international universities like Babasan Open University, Malaysia, Graphics Era Hill University, India, UNEB, Brazil, University of Fiji, Commonwealth Educational Media Center for Asia, New Delhi, Regional Director of Indira Gandhi National Open University, India, and Director of Distance Education at University of Guyana, South America. He has been a member of advisory group on human resource development for the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. He is the editor of Asian Journal of Distance Education and has been associated with several other peer review journal, including SSCI Scopus Journal as a reviewer, editor, and editorial advisory board of members in the field of open and distance learning, and with many, many more achievements. Once again, welcome, sir, and we are fortunate that we all can meet you virtually. I would like to request you, sir, kindly enlighten us with your wisdom words. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Shweta. Namaskar, everyone. Here, my topic is about cybersecurity simulations. So first of all, let us understand that what is cybersecurity simulation. We can say that it is a controlled and interactive exercise which mimics the real world cyber threat scenarios, and we use it to train the IT professionals, test systems, evaluate the effectiveness of security measures. The advantage of such simulations are to provide a safe environment to identify vulnerabilities. We need to practice incident responses, enhance organizational preparedness against potential cyber attacks without the risk of actual damage. If you remember, just I think 2 years ago, and it has happened very late also, the All India Institute of Medical Sciences in New Delhi, it was held, attacked through ransomware, and it is believed that they asked about 200 crore rupees. Government did not admit to that, but it is believed that that amount was paid. And for 14 days, all the doctors, nurses, everything was, means they made reports, they were done by hand, wherever everything was, computerized there. So that these kind of cybersecurity threats, they are really very real. And every day in the newspapers nowadays, we are seeing something, a new phenomenon called as digital arrest. It is coming to notice. We will get a call from some customs officer or from courier services person. They will say that we have received a packet in which your Aadhaar card is there, your this there, and there are some drugs into it or some antisocial objects into it. And then you need to sort it out. And then all those kind of things, they are happening around us. So, and you can consider it like a large financial institution which faces a constant threat of cyber attacks, stealing the sensitive customer data, as has been said about Aadhaar card data, or so many things, they keep on happening. The purpose is to steal that information or disrupt the operations. And to prepare for such threats, the institutions, we need to conduct cybersecurity simulation, where we can simulate a sophisticated, for example, a spear phishing attack aimed at the employees. And in this scenario, the simulation, it includes fake emails. You may be knowing about deep fake audio, deep fake video, something like. We can include fake emails which appear to come from trusted sources. Nowadays there are tools that I can send an email to Dr. Shweta and which will appear like it is coming from Dr. Dhar. So it will appear as genuine email, where it is completely fake email. So there are sites, there are tools. Easily you can change the name and it will impersonate that. The purpose here is to trick the employees into revealing their login credentials or their actual information. Now, means if we have talked about the spear phishing attack, what is actually the spear phishing attack? There are two kind of things here. One is the phishing attack, only simple one. Phishing attack means like fish, we capture the fish. You throw the net into the ocean and capture. But spear phishing means the type of cyber attack which is targeted as a personalized email to deceive the recipients into revealing confidential information clicking on malicious link or opening attachments, which can lead to installation of some malware or harmful software, something like that. So spear phishing attack is unlike broader phishing attack, which are sent to large number of, like if you remember, I think, okay, you are most of, in Delhi, 200 schools, they were sent a Hawks email that there is bomb in your school and there was a lot of panic. And after some days, the same thing happened in Gujarat. those kind of things. So here also the goal of spear phishing attack is stealing sensitive data, infecting the system with malware, or conducting some sort of financial fraud. The importance here in this is that to prepare the organizations and to respond to the potential cyber threats. And through these simulations, we can evaluate our preparedness. It is something like NDMA, National Disaster Management Association. Sometimes they have, or the fire drill, which the people, they do. To check our readiness for the preparedness, to identify the vulnerability into the systems, and to train the staff in the effective response strategies without the risk of real world damage. That is more important here. There has been some examples of it happening, particularly like there is this major IT services company in Bangalore. The cybersecurity simulations for there. Because they noted that an increase in cyber attack incidents across the industry and targeting the financial data and intellectual property. So they created a simulation there to mimic a sophisticated ransomware attack, where the attackers, they encrypted the company data and demanded a ransom for decrypting that data. So this simulation involved the company's IT teams, which received the alerts about the suspicious network. And then the team was tasked to respond to that threat by isolating the infected systems, identifying the source of attack, and deploying the countermeasures to prevent that spread, all those things. So these simulations, particularly, they are very important for us in India. Nowadays, we are #1 in the population, and we are in a way #1. The mobile data are cheapest in the world in India. When I was teaching in Malaysia, there I had to wait. Baat khatam karo, so that I can disconnect, because the rates are very high. But here you can keep on talking for hours and hours, and still our bill is nominal. And in our country, the digital booming economy is booming. And it is a world-class study as well. The emergence of these digital payments. Everybody is using, see, these rickshawala and the street vendors selling their vegetables. Everyone has either Google Pay, Paytm, or something like that. And these cyber threats, they are becoming actually very sophisticated. Every day something new scheme will come. So it is like Chor Sipahi, who is ahead of whom. So why these are essential component for any organization's broader cybersecurity strategy? There are some of the important objects for that. The one is incident response training. To train the IT staff, security team, relevant staff in responding to cyber threats effectively and efficiently. If in the institution receives that, oh, okay, there is a bomb in the lab, and then, instead of panicking. So these simulations, they allow us to react to that various scenarios, including the data breaches, ransomware attack, system intrusions, and thereby we improve the skills in a risk-free environment using these. Means instead of getting infected with actual ransomware, it is better to use these simulations. Then another is to identify the vulnerability. Means those which exploit. So we can see the first hand how the system might perform under the attack by identifying them. And then testing and improving these security protocols. Through these simulations, we can test that how safe we are actually, instead of considering that, oh, we are very safe, our network is very strong, this, that, the actual. In addition to this, there are certain other objectives and benefits of it, like compliance verification to the regulations and how these protocols they are performed in practice, enhancing the cybersecurity awareness as well, about the culture, accessing the disaster recovery and the continuity plan of the organization. So means if something happens, then how would you recover from that disaster? And benchmarking performance improvement, those things. Now, if we are talking about cybersecurity simulations, what are various components of that? So there are certain, realistic and effective simulations. They allow us to have like the scenario development. We call it as creating a threat modeling. We identify a potential threat and create a scenario based on the organizational risk profile. There are certain, like income tax department, it is highly risk profile. If somebody tries to attack it, Aadhaar card data, something, Amazon, those companies, e-commerce companies. If it is a simple, small office organization, the risk threat is less in that. So objective here is to define clear objectives for what that simulation aims to test. Then another is means the kind of malware attack on how it is can be effectively improved from the actual kind of attack from there. And these malwares, they can come from anywhere, either any employee. We in an organization, we categorize the employees in various categories. Happy employees, they will do anything for the betterment of the organization. Unhappy, disgruntled. And then there are, not against the organization, but not careful enough. Those kind of employees. And both these categories, they are quite, can go bad for the institution's IT health. Because if I'm not careful enough and I received an email, I just clicked it and it can spread over the network of the institution, those things. Then we have these, the denial of service and distributed denial of service. Locking down our systems means making us completely crippled and, not allowing us to go with that. So then we have the man in the middle attack. Man in the middle attack is something like attackers secretly relaying and possibly altering the communication between two parties. Like SVV wanted to invite Dr. Anita ji for this event, and somebody, man in the middle, changes that message and sends some other message. There is really a trouble. So it happens. That is called as the man in the middle attack. Then we have SQL injection. This attack involves inserting malicious SQL statement, which are structured query language for database processing and something, into an entry field for execution, like to dump the database content to the attacker. So you create an input field and then create it, like as you see on the number 2 stage in the database. There are those fields, and when you fill, then the data goes to other side. The another thing is cross-site scripting. Here the attackers, they add the malicious script to the trusted website. So you want to go to HDFC Bank, you will see, oh, okay, this is my HDFC Bank, whereas it is not the actual HDFC Bank website. So that can. And this is quite dangerous. Another one, the zero-day exploit. Previously unknown vulnerability means we do not know that what was there, but then and suddenly something happens. Until we sort it out, it is called as 0 day to issue that patches or advise on mitigations, how to do those kind of things. There are other issues as well, which are very important here for simulation purpose, like insider threat simulations. That how well an organization can detect and respond to threats posed by our own employees. If Sweta is not getting regular increments, he will say, "Dekh lungi sabko." That kind of situation. And then we have advanced persistent threat, in which simulations involve stealthy network effect attack. The intruders gains access to a network and remains undetected for a long time. It is something like coronavirus now inside our body. Doctors say that it is inside us and we have to live with it. It can't be taken out. Only when suitable time comes, it can get activated. So, there are now, let us say that what are various softwares and tools which are used for cybersecurity simulations. I won't go into the details. I will just show you the examples. This is GNS, which is Graphical Network Simulator. It is used to virtualize both the simple as well as complex network organizations. Then we have Metasploit framework. It is open source tool, which allows for developing and executing to exploit the code against a remote target machine. This is Cobalt Strike. It's a security tool for testing the organization's information systems. This is Tenable Nessus, which is widely used for vulnerability assessment, that how vulnerable we are, how unsafe we are. Then we have this Greenbone OpenVAS. It is a scanner which can detect security issues in systems and networks. Then we have a phishing framework, GoFish, open source tool. We use it to test and train the employees on phishing awareness by sending them simulated phishing emails. So like I can send an email to Dr. Manwani ji that, okay, this is, and then I will wait that how he will respond to that. So a kind of creating that. Now, this is Kingfisher. It supports the simulation of real-world phishing attack for the testing purpose and to promote the user awareness. Then Wireshark, to interactively browse the traffic running on the computer networks of any organization. Then we have this Scapy. This is a powerful Python-based interactive manipulation program for network scanning, pocket sniffing, raw packet simulation, like that. This is Snort, another open source intrusion detection software used for. This is Suricata for network in real-time intrusion detection. We use it. This is very popular, Kali Linux. It is a Debian-based Linux distribution. The purpose here to advance the penetration testing and security auditing in the organizations. This is one of the most popular open source platform. And then we have Splunk, and then there are so many things. So I would like to conclude now by identifying certain emerging trends and technologies. The one is the integration of AI and machine learning, because they are being incorporated into cybersecurity simulations. And Professor Dhar also in his opening remarks was mentioning about it. With the help of these, we create dynamic and intelligent scenarios. Because, and you must have already seen the power of generative AI tools, creating those kind of. So we can analyze vast amount of data because large learning models, LLMs, processing them, it is easier for us. And we can identify the pattern of attack. We can predict the potential breach and automate the response using those things. The another is big data analysis. By having the insights into the security threats and improving our decision making using the simulations for those. Because every organization has a lot of historical data, and we can create simulations tailor-made to replicate the past incidents with a high accuracy and predict the future attack vectors for that. Then this is APT simulation, which involves long-term stealthy operations. Those people who infiltrate and remain undetected, lying somewhere in the corner, waiting for the right opportunity. You know, it is something like कोई चोर घर में घुस गया और कोने में बैठा है, and then waiting for something that, okay, at this time now I will strike. So this is. Then we have cloud-based systems using those things, and cyber range platforms, which are used for cybersecurity training and software development. So hands-on cyber exercises, etc., they are created. This everybody knows, very popular nowadays, using AR and VR for CS simulations, where the people, they are now actually using immersive environment. They interact with the network or play on the role of attacker or defender using them. And then Dr. Vinod Damlekar is an expert on gamification. So making the learning process more engaging and interactive by incorporating elements, for example, points, leaderboards, rewards, etc. Using these kind of simulations, we can motivate our participants, our staff, to improve their skills or take exercises more seriously. And finally, the applications of IoT and mobile simulations, because they can reflect on the growing need to protect the diverse and distributed digital ecosystems, particularly more than 100 cities in India now, they have been declared as smart cities, where these sensors and IoT, other things, they are talking to each other. And you can now imagine the threat potential to what large extent is available. And simulations are very useful for us to be prepared for those kind of settings. Otherwise, it is quite funny. Whenever there is an interview for job, we all know that there is one question very popular among the interviewers. Where do you see yourself after 5 years? People ask, where do you see yourself for 10 years? And I was thinking that if somebody has asked this question to someone, say in 2020, that where do you see after 5 years? Perhaps nobody replied, after 5 years, I will see myself sitting at home because there is Corona and not going outside, because we were not prepared for that. And that's why it was a global crisis. Cybersecurity is also a global crisis. We need to be ready for that. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. This is indeed, your presentation is simulation one only, I must say that. And especially why cybersecurity simulation are important and necessity of the hour. So your words are valuable and insightful, sir. Thank you, sir, for your valuable talk, sir. I would like to request and invite Session Chair Dr. D.T. Manwani, sir, if he would like to add on this session or give his expert views. Sir, your mic is mute. Yeah.
Thank you, Shweta. Dr. Ramesh Sharma has done wonderful presentation, explained each and everything. He is expert in his field. I don't want to add anything. If anybody has got a question to him, he is welcome to ask the question. So that way we learn better. We have 76 participants. Anyone have a question on this?
There is one question in the chat box, and it says that how to prepare young minds towards long-term realistic goals with technology intruding in our lives beyond our imagination. This is from Dr. Dharmendra Mehta from JNIBM Ujjain.
Yeah, by including the real world cases, the actual cases into the curriculum, because this is related to everyone. The cybersecurity is not only for computer science students, it is for everyone. Like the environmental awareness is for everyone. We are using digital technologies for all works of life. Everybody uses this, whether it is teachers, students, or common vendor on the street or something. So when we have those kind of awareness, either we can have it as a mela, awareness mela, have some sort of an event, or it is better that include it as a part of the curriculum. Have those examples included in that. that how we need to stay safe.
Thank you so much, sir. Any more question you would like to ask, please write it down, or you can leave your question on question answer box. We'll take it after the every session if we do have a in session time. Otherwise, we'll take it on the last of the session. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Ramesh Sharma, sir, for your talk. Now, with due permission of session chair, Dr. D.T. Manmani, sir, I'm inviting our second speaker of plenary session 1, Ms. Himani Chandorkar, co-founder of Acumen 360 and Etude 360 Gujarat. Ma'am is having 2 decades of experience and persuading vision to provide learning and development solution with a focus on measurable and sustained impact. She has led numerous outcome-focused HR and OD interventions impacting companies such as Hindustan Unilever, DHL, Aditya Birla Group, MG Motors, UPL, Sun Pharma, Apollo Tires. Ms. Himani is a certified experiential learning game designer by North American Stimulation and Gaming Association, United States of America. Her passion and forte lies in the use of experiential learning methods to generate measurable change. And recently, she's a recipient of Gold Award at the Economic Times Future Skill Award 2023 for the effective use of simulation in learning and development. I would like to request ma'am kindly enlighten us with your wisdom words. Over to you, Himani ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Shweta, and thanks for the introduction, and a very good afternoon to all of you, and good to see all of you here. I can see a good number of people and a lot of seniors here, and I think so. I would humbly say that there is a lot of more knowledge in this room than what I have over here, but I would like to share my experience of using simulations, and so now I would be sharing my screen. I think so. I have the permission to share, right? Yes.
Please.
Yes, you have.
Yes.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So before we move into the topic, I would just like to say that before setting foot in the real world, pilots, military personnel, disaster response teams, they all go through intense simulations. In fact, we just listened to Dr. Sharma talking about how to use simulations even for cybersecurity reasons. And this is precisely for preparing people for a crisis situation or even developing basic skills so that when the situation actually arises, you are able to tackle it better. For doing that, simulations create a safe environment for you to experiment things without losing anything. Now, if we can have a simulator for a pilot so that he or she is not flying a plane and really crash landing it, but might be crash landing it in a simulation first, or for military personnel to give them experience of what combat feels like without losing out on lives, then why don't we have it for managers? Why don't we have it for leaders? Because a lot of times there are many behaviors which a manager, a team member may display at work, and the learning comes only after there is loss of resources, loss of relationships, or loss of results. And for that purpose, yes, something which comes handy over here is behavioral simulations. And in my experience of working on behavioral simulations with thousands of participants, I would say behavioral simulations do drive transformation. Transformation in organizational results, individual outcomes, and I would say individual personalities as well. So talking about behavioral simulations, what's going to be my agenda in the next 20-25 minutes? The game behind the game. Any simulation you talk about, it's a game. But the bigger game is the game that runs behind it to create a game which actually creates an impact. So we will talk about the game behind the game. We will talk about the outcomes it can lead to. And very importantly, how it transforms into real actions, real responses, and real results. So I would give you an opportunity to listen to real people. What is their first response, first reaction when they are in a behavioral simulation? Because when you talk about technical simulations, when you talk about functional simulations, they are related to knowledge. When it comes to behavioral simulations, yes, that's going to be something different because it impacts the moods, the behaviors, the responses of people, which are very dynamic. So that is something which we would look at. Now, moving on to a question which I would like to put up to all of you. Authentic response and buying for change. When we talk about experiential learning methods, there are various experiential learning methods. There are case studies, there are role plays, there are simulations. But when we talk about using these experiential learning methods in terms of behavior change, in behavioral interventions, if we think about how do case studies help us, how do role plays help us, how do simulations help us, I think so the responses would be different, because if you look at a case study, if you measure it in terms of authentic response and buying for change, or if you measure a role play in terms of the authentic response and buying for change, and similarly for simulations. For example, a case study, if I'm going through a case study and I give my response to it, that what would I do in a particular situation? Is that an authentic response? If a real situation of that kind arises, am I going to behave in that way, or is it my response to the case study? That's what I mean by authentic response. And when I attempt a case study, how much buy-in for change does it generate? Do I go back to my real life and actually put back into practice what I wrote or how I analyzed a case study? And similarly, it goes with role plays and simulations. So for doing that, as simulations are more interactive in nature, I would need some interaction from your end. And for that, if we have all of you over here who are actually currently with your mobile phones, do all of you have your mobile phones? Yes? Okay. So I'm going
Yes,
to
they
share.
have.
Yes, I'm going to share a screen over here now. Just give me a moment. Okay, can you see my screen again? Okay, so
Yes, ma'am.
now you can see at the top over there, it says joinmenti.com. So if you have your mobile phone, then you can log into menti.com, and then you can use the code 86808158. When you do that, you would get a chance to vote that on a scale of 1 to 10, when it comes to authentic responses, how would you rate a behavioral case study? And when you talk about buy-in for change, how would you rate a behavioral case study? Similarly for role plays and for behavioral simulations. So let's see, what does the group over here, 75 of us, feel about this. I'll keep this link open for a minute, and let's see as many responses come in a minute. Are you able to log into menti.com? Yeah.
Participants, I request participants, if you're finding any problem, so you can write in a chat box so that we come to know what maybe if they are able to log in or not.
Yeah. So I can see responses coming in. Due to paucity of time, I'm going to wait for another minute for as many responses that come in the next 1 minute. Okay, so we have a few responses here. And although there are few responses, we have received what I was expecting this thing to show. So I can see behavioral simulations in the second quadrant at the top, wherein the bind for change as well as the authentic response seems to be the highest. And I have used all three methods, especially when you talk about behavioral interventions. That's where I've found simulations to work the best. And why do they work the best? So when you look at case studies, role plays, simulations, in a case study or in a role play, I might give an ideal response, which I feel is right for that particular situation. But when that situation actually arises, am I able to demonstrate that? That may be a question mark. Because when it comes to case studies, role plays, I might be putting my best foot forward. And in the role play, I might do a wonderful job. In my case study, I might resolve a particular case in a great way. But I might get the satisfaction of doing the case study well. Does it give me a buy-in for change? I don't know. So when you're in a simulation, the responses are absolutely authentic. Because in a behavioral simulation, it's a combination. You can have analytical tasks, tactical tasks. You can also have certain activities which are more physical in nature, under time constraints, under resource constraints. And when you're in a simulation, the behaviors, the natural behaviors emerge. A person who loses temper, who is short-tempered, you will find that person losing temper. A person who is not a very planned person might make mistakes in the planning phase and see the impact of not planning in the beginning on the impact of the entire result at the end of the simulation. And when that happens and you're able to see how your natural behaviors help you or harm you, then the last question, which is there at the top, buy-in for change, it goes higher. Behaviors change not by telling people what to do, but behaviors change when I experience what is helping me or what is harming me. And that's how behavioral simulations can actually be impactful in making a meaningful difference in getting measurable outcomes out of interventions. Now, looking at the game behind the game, and to understand it better, I'm going to use the context of a simulation which we use, and that's around a virtual Everest climb. Now, how does it work and why a virtual Everest climb? So first of all, the game behind the game starts off by initially looking at what is the complex real life situation that you want to address. Now, when you talk about complex real life situations, there are different kinds of complex real life situations which can be addressed through simulations. It could be an organization which is scaling up. It could be individuals coming into new leadership roles. There could be certain set of managerial skills which they are not experienced of, and now they have to handle them. There could be a merger, acquisition, a takeover of a company, a new product being introduced. We have used simulations in all these real life complex situations. And then once you know what is the complex real life situation, the time is to translate the real life into gaming elements. So for example purpose, I would say, let's say we are talking about something where there's a big change happening. Talking about the context of even COVID or the pandemic, there was a big change that happened, something which people had never expected. Now, teams had to work differently. Leaders had to foresee how would the business change in the market now because of the changing scenarios. And so there was an element of handling the unexpected. And that's where we used a simulation around a virtual Everest climb, because when you climb a mountain, when you climb Everest, there are so many things which are unexpected. You have to be prepared. You have to be equipped to handle the unexpected, not get scared by the scale. And so all these elements culminated together to form a simulation. Now, once the real life situation is converted into gaming elements, the next stage is playing out the game. But I would say the heart of the simulation is in the fourth point. And that fourth point is debriefing. You need to translate the experience of the game to the real life situations. So you have to come full circle back to where you started. If you stop at playing the game, you will have people enjoying the game, but they are not going to take it back to real life. And that's the core of any simulation. So now when you look at something like this, how does it work? So the first part is the design specifications. Now, when you talk about design specifications, while designing a behavioral simulation, extremely important is the intake that you take. Who is going to be participating in the simulation? Are they senior managers? Are they fresh joinees in an organization? Are they college students? Are they people who are actually into a particular high critical job? So we have worked with chemical manufacturing companies who are working in very hazardous plants. For them, focus on accuracy becomes very high, and not only in terms of the technicalities, but overall their mindset, their behaviors. So now the next part is, what are the focus areas to be addressed? So the audience once defined, we need to understand what are the learning objectives to be addressed. And when you talk about learning objectives, there can be varied objectives. So again, going back to the context of the Everest simulation, a lot of things which are applicable in a corporate world are applicable in the game of climbing a real Everest also. So you climb the real Everest and you climb your Everest goals when you're working in an organization. And there are certain objectives which can be addressed. Passion plus preparation. It brings performance when you are climbing a mountain. It brings performance when you're working in an organization. It brings performance as a student. Power of focus. What are you focusing on? Are you focusing on problems? Are you focusing on opportunities? Scale need not scare. When you're climbing a mountain, it could be the syllabus that you're handling as a student. It could be the projects that you're handling as a leader. One step at a time. How do you make friends with fear? How do you handle the unexpected? And of course, time is oxygen. So if you look at it, now tying in the gaming elements of a simulation into real life situations. So simulations, behavioral simulations are also of two kinds. There are one kind of simulations which address real business scenarios, where it could be actually a business scenario. You could be playing the role of a marketing manager, finance manager. And the other side of it, when we talk about game design, you use suitable metaphors. So the one that I'm talking about is a metaphorical simulation, where you're using the suitable metaphor of a mountain climb to the climbs that we have in our life. How do metaphors help? Because metaphors become very exciting and Everest climb becomes very exciting. At the same time, at the back of the mind, you are not very conscious about your behaviors. But subconsciously, you are displaying behaviors which you would display in a real life situation as well. So when you do game design, now's the time to build scenarios. So whether it is a business simulation or a metaphorical simulation, you start building scenarios. You create unexpected events for the participants, because there always has to be a curiosity element. What will come next? And then only when that curiosity is there, when that little anxiety is there, when the situation comes up in a time constraint, in a resource constraint, you will see those natural behaviors beautifully emerging. It's extremely important that you define roles. Every individual participating in a simulation has to have a role to play. It helped us immensely when we designed a virtual simulation during COVID. So during COVID, when we designed the simulation, each person had a role to play. And unlike a virtual, I would say, training program, where people tend to switch off their videos and start doing other things, multitasking, this was a program where for 3 hours, not a single break and not a single person would switch off their videos because they had a role to play. They knew that if I don't get engaged, my team is going to lose out. And for that, it's important that you have rules in a simulation and you have a beautiful accounting system. When you say an accounting system, it's about what are the losses and what are the profits of your actions. So if you do something right, how do you gain? And if you do something wrong, how do you lose? And at the end of the simulation, that's where you see which behaviors help me earn in positive and which behaviors made me earn a loss. And that brings about a lot of buy-in for change. So once you have this game design in place, story doesn't end there. Because now when the game construction happens, a lot of testing happens. You test individual elements, test individual scenarios, and you also test end to end. Because when all the scenarios tie together, at the end of it, you have to see how does it actually come across? Does it actually deliver on what you want to deliver on, what the client has shared with you, the objectives to be realized? There are a lot of talk throughs where you talk through with a sample set of participants and try to plug in the loopholes. There are a lot of walkthroughs where you actually take a sample set of participants through test runs or pre-testing, as you would say. And a lot of what ifs have to be addressed. And when this stage is done, and this I would say is a continuous evolutionary process, especially in behavioral simulations, because as dynamic as our human behaviors, the simulation also has to be flexible to adapt to the dynamic behaviors. So these are the 3 stages which help you to build a very strong and robust behavioral simulation. Now, when such a simulation is created, as I shared with you, what is the impact? And how do people reflect upon it? So I'm going to take you through a real life reflection of a person who has just gone through a simulation and what has been the experience. The experience is not just during the simulation. It's about what happens before, during, and after. So let's listen to a participant talking about it.
Your first question, when you say what I was feeling before the session, there was a lot of curiosity. And as you rightly said, you had probably confused us. So one thing we knew that we will take something out of this, which will connect us with our future competencies and overall will help our team bonding. But we had no idea what we are getting into because there was a lot of speculation. Are we going to really do some physical activity? Is it going to be totally virtual? And how will those learnings help us in connecting with our future competencies? So curiosity, expectation, enthusiasm, that element that we knew that all are going to be together. So a whole lot of energy which was kind of building up. So all of this was there. So we came with that mindset in. And then I think today when I'm sitting back and thinking, and especially after all those workshops and activities that we did, right when we started, I think we started connecting the dots, the experience which came after each activity. And we were like reflecting, no, this probably we shouldn't have done. This is what agility means. This is what, quick thinking means. This is where you say no. And all of this. And you said, yeah, these... If you had to really do a summit or if you had to do some kind of such physical activity or if you're doing virtual, there are takeaways which you can connect to your professional work, to your personal work, and then you bring that learning into your daily life then. And I think it brings learning, but now the next step for us is to convert that learning into our daily work, to continue on that momentum. That's what I would see it.
So as you heard over here, this was an experience of a real participant, and it started right from the beginning, even before the climb. So if you're creating a behavioral simulation, it's important that you also build it up. If you're able to have a build up to the simulation, then the impact is further higher because then people come in prepared with the mindset in the roles that they are supposed to play. And that makes it all the more immersive. Now, this is the client that we talked about. I'm just going to share a client case, how the simulation translates from the simulation to actual behaviors and to actual implementations and actions. So with the client, the focus area that we received was to build 2 identified future competencies for their team: adaptive and agile mindset and execution excellence. Now, when you talk about it, a lot of organizations have a lot of competencies. They have a lot of, I would say, value behaviors or values put up in their organizations. But then it is important to connect these competencies to concrete behaviors so that the individual knows that repetition of which behavior is going to help me. And that's where the behaviors come in. So over here, connecting behaviors to these competencies, we saw that proactive communications, these were just 2 behaviors. We had a list of behaviors listed. So proactive communication in the event of deviation from plans. So adaptive and agile mindset. So when you talk about proactive communication in the event of deviation from plans, it connects back to the competency, adaptive and agile mindset. Demonstrate system adherence over people dependence. So this again is a behavior which contributes to execution excellence. And similarly, you can think of various behaviors which can contribute in building certain competencies. Once those behaviors are identified, they can be integrated in the simulation design. You can create an experience where the participants actually go through the experience of displaying or not displaying those behaviors. And that's what leads to the simulation outcomes. They experience the impact of not demonstrating the behaviors on the final outcome, as well as demonstrating those behaviors on the final outcome. That leads to the buy-in for change, and that leads to the concrete real-life action points. Now, these concrete real-life action points can be taken up in real life later. And how does it impact? So in this case, if you see, the impact that was generated was certain communication systems and platforms were created in the organization so that there was clear communication and actions were taken, adaptive actions were taken at the right time without delays. There were SOPs or standard operating procedures created, troubleshooting guides created, so that execution excellence was improved. And that's how something which started with a game moved on to experiencing the behaviors, actually transformed into an impact, which is now sustained in the organization. And that's how simulations can contribute to actual sustained behaviors and impact which lead to measurable outcomes. This is how the entire cycle of a behavioral simulation works. And before I close, I would just run a short video to see how an actual simulation looks like when in action. As I said, when you look at a simulation, it can be 2 kinds of things. Of course, there can be virtual simulations, but when you're doing it in a physical format, it can be a combination of analytical tasks as well as tasks which involve a physical element, because when there is a physical element involved, you will find more natural behaviors emerging. So quick 2 minutes glimpse before I close of a simulation in action, and here we go.
Mission Everest. It was totally new concept, and there was a lot of curiosity on what's going to be there. So of course we knew we'll not be actually climbing Everest, but then what is it? And you mentioned it would be experiential learning. So all the more curiosity of what can be there, how are we going to do it? So a lot of questions.
The best part is the actual simulation of the Everest and its correlation in the actual world with different activities that we had.
There is always some learning in every activity, and when we look back in every activity, there is something to get. So I think that is really a good thing.
this is something interesting, we need to look forward for it. So that वो ट्रैक से पहले जो anxiety रहता है ना, तो it was there. The activities were, they were games, but then after that activity, how do you connect it to your real life situation? That is something which I mean, it's my takeaway.
One thing we knew, it brings learning, but now the next step for us is to convert that learning into our daily work, to continue on that momentum. That's what I would see it.
So thank you very much. And I hope in the 20-25 minutes, I was able to share a bit about the power of behavior simulations. Thanks a lot.
Yes, ma'am, indeed, this, your session is really correlated with the simulation and the real world. Ma'am, there's one question. With your permission of session chair, can I take a question, sir?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So, ma'am, this is a question from Per Maheshwari. As a student, how we can generate behavior simulation in teaching learning process?
As a student or as a teacher?
As a
Who is
student.
asking? As a student. Okay, so they want to use behavioral simulations for
teaching learning process. I think this might be a question for the teaching faculty also. So
yeah, that's
yes,
why
as
I
for
asked
the
that.
dual way. Yeah,
That's why
for
I asked, is it from a teacher or from a student? So it's a student saying this.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
student. Yeah.
Yes. So the learning process, yes, we use simulations even for that. So the thing is, a lot of times we have not used it in colleges, but even when we work with corporates, at times there are train the trainer programs. There are people within the organization who are supposed to train. And then we give them certain tasks wherein they get to experience that, okay, their method of training things, how it is effective, not effective. So it's about building in elements of a process wherein you make it a little tricky. At the same time, you have a time constraint. You build in certain elements where you build in scenarios that, okay, you are in a classroom, the kind of students that you have over there. So at times the elements are, we create handicaps in the capabilities of the receivers. And now how do you address them? Now the handicap is not necessarily a real handicap, but each one of us has a handicap. So it's about, if I'm sitting in a, like right now when I was listening to Dr. Sharma's session, so I am a person who's a newbie to cybersecurity, so I will come in with a handicap. And in the same way, somebody for a behavioral simulation, yes, somebody would come in with a handicap. Now, how do you deal with individuals with those handicaps, because all learners are not equal? And then how do you actually work around that? So simulations can be built around that, but then I would take another 1 hour for the session so we can have a chat after the session today.
Ma'am, I think the next question from the same student has already, like you have explained everything in detail. His question is, how can simulation activity can be actually connected to real life, especially at the workplace? And I think by the various videos, you have already explained that how the simulation can be connected with the real world.
So
So
I'll give you a very simple, I'll give you a simple example, a real life example, how it actually works out in practice. So I'll again give you the context because it becomes easier to understand. An Everest climb simulation. So our simulation starts with resource planning, and you would even plan for oxygen cylinders right at the beginning. But if you reach the Camp 4, so when you climb Everest, I'm talking in mountain language, I myself climb mountains, I've been on some challenging treks. But if you reach Camp 4, which is the topmost camp on an Everest climb, and then you go to the summit, if you reach Camp 4 and you fall short of one oxygen cylinder, as facilitators or expedition leaders, as we call ourselves, we call off the expedition. The project is called off because you cannot go to the summit with one short oxygen cylinder. You will die on a real expedition as well. And this translates into action in project management. The resource planning that happens at the beginning of a project, how it impacts the end of your project. It can completely make your project go bust. And that is the connection that people see. What is the value of planning right at the beginning? How do you see 2 steps ahead and not just look at the short term that let's save money right now and आगे जाके देख ली जाएगी. That does not work. So this is just one example which we have actually seen coming into action with project management teams, and then they have worked on their project planning differently to ensure such loopholes are not left.
Thank you again, ma'am. Now, I would like to invite session chair, Dr. D.T. Manwani, sir, for concluding remark of this session, plenary 1. Over to you, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I would like to say that I got stimulated with the sessions of Dr. Sharma and Madam Ivani. Both the resource persons have done extremely well in providing the update information. What is latest in the field, they have been able to provide us. I'm sure that there is a lot of takeaway, whatever they have given us. From my side, I would like to, we have been talking about the simulation, which is the future of L&D. I would like to share some information, some data on the future of L&D. So within L&D, we are saying the simulation is the future. But do you know what is the future of L&D? If the L&D has got a future, then simulation has a future. So I have some information which I would like to share. This information regarding the worldwide, what is the greatest skill shortages? I have got some information which I would like to share that shortage is a percentage of firms with 10 or more employees across the world. You will be surprised to know that Japan has the highest shortage of 81%. India has got 64%, Australia 41%, Germany 40%, US 40%, China 24%, France 12%, and UK. This source is manpower talent shortage survey via OECD, but this information of year 2014. This shows the L&D has got a great future. It's got a great business. Especially when we are talking India, you know that we already crossed the GDP value of 3.6 trillion US dollar is on 31st March 2024. We are the 5th largest economy, and we are aspiring to become 3rd largest economy by 27-28. This shows that we have a great future. L&D has got future. L&D professionals have got a great future. People are working in this field. People are working on a simulation. They have a great future. Now I have got one more information that in the current year, what are the key learning and development trends in the year 2024? Couple of them I will read it out quickly because of shortage time. Upskilling and reskilling, micro learning, hybrid learning, adaptive learning, VR and AR learning, gamification, automated graded assessment. Now you can use AI to streamline the grading process. When we want to do appraisal, where we want to do the grading of the people, there also this can be used. Now there is one more information which is available. The global simulation software market size is projected to hit around USD 40.5 billion by 2030 and is expected to grow at a CAGR of 11.83% during the forecast period from 2022 to 2030. What I'm trying to say is that the L&D itself has got a great future. And as we have seen that the simulation is the future of learning and development. So the people who are already working in this field, they should continue to keep the field for at least next 10 to 20 years. There is a great demand and great future. I wish all the best for the people who are in this field. And Dr. Vinod Dublekar is already working in this field. I'm sure that whatever he is trying to do, it is different to fetch him commercially also. So with this, I close and I wish all the best. And I'm very happy to say that in my session, I had two wonderful resource people, and I'm very happy to be associated with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you, respected speakers, for your valuable time and insightful presentations. Thank you so much. I would like to again request to August participants of this convention, kindly stay on the link as we are proceeding to second plenary session of the convention with brief introduction of session chair, Dr. Vinod Dumblekar, founder and CEO of Mentes. Respected sir, kindly allow. Vinod sir, can we proceed for the plenary session too?
Yeah, I'm ready. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Dr. Vinod Dumblekar is a founder and the CEO of Mentes, one of the country's oldest brand in simulation games. His games over business operations, business strategies, corporate strategies, marketing and brand management, and entrepreneurship for managers and management students. He is a keen student of design, development, and debriefing of stimulation games. He is a regular researcher in learning behavior and behaviors and experiences and team interaction in games. His papers on simulation games were presented at and published for conferences at Munich, Atlanta, Singapore, Warsaw, and Bangkok. He is an associate editor of Simulation and Gaming and a regular reviewer of Ames Journal of Management, Journal of Sports Analytics, and Journal of Cognition. Heartiest welcome to you, sir.
Thank you.
Further, with due permission of yours, I would like to proceed with the brief introduction of our plenary session speakers, Mr. Siddharth Sarkar and Mr. Suman Kumar from Tata Consultancy Services. Shall I, sir?
Yeah, please go ahead. Thank you.
Siddharth Sarkar is presently engaged in research within the Behavioral Business and Social Sciences Department at TCS Research. His expertise lies in consumer behavior, retailing, brand management, and behavioral science. Holding a PhD from IIT Mumbai, his ongoing research concentrates on areas such as retail behavior, price optimization, customer intent, the digital twin of the customer, and visual attention. He boasts over 14 years of experience in both academia and the corporate world. Heartiest welcome to you, Siddharth sir. Suman Kumar sir is an experienced researcher and specialist in applying behavior modeling, simulation, and optimizing technique across the various domains. With 7 years of experience in modeling human behavior, he has made noteworthy contribution to consumer behavior, organizational behavior, and compliance. He holds a master degree in electrical engineering from IIT Kanpur. Welcome, sir, and over to both of you. Kindly enlighten us with your presentations and with your motivational words. Over to you, both of you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Shweta. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
There is a bit of lag because I've joined from the link itself. My video, I don't know whether it's still good, but let me start the presentation.
Yes, it's good.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Can you see still the full screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone, esteemed faculties and distinguished guests. So I'm honored to be here in this forum today. My name is Siddharth Sarkar and joined by my colleague, Mr. Suman Kumar, and we are part of Behavioral Business Resource Sciences Research Area in TCS Research. As you gathered here, we are excited to share thoughts and insights from our work at the intersections of technology, behavior, and society. So thank you for joining us at this fascinating event. Um, so moving next, let me try to give us some holistic overview of this human behavior simulations, and then Suman will talk about some of the specific use case and the component of simulations. So my first thing I just wanted to highlight something on the how do and why do ghettos form. So specifically, take an example in urban areas around the world, diversity is defining the characteristics of different people. So from ethnicity and race to religion and profession, cities are melting pots of different cultures and backgrounds. However, despite the diversity, many urban areas are characterized by the formation of ghettos where one group dominates. Take an example of Little India, which is very popular in New Jersey, or Chinatown in Kolkata. These are some examples. So, a neighborhood with the predominantly one ethnic group, but why do ghettos form? Even in seamlessly cosmopolitan societies, also in developed places like in US. So Thomas Schelling, as an economist and Nobel laureate, who proposed the groundbreaking hypothesis to explain this formation of ghettos. What he said that the people have preferences for having a moderate percentage of neighborhood was similar to them, so they wanted to stick together. So imagine a family who finds themselves surrounded by the neighbors who are different from them in terms of the ethnicity, race, or religion. So they may feel uncomfortable or out of the place in their current neighborhood. So what you do, or what would they do? They do specifically what happened that in that case the family decided to move to a different location, different cities where they find the similar kind of people from their neighbors to meet their preferences. The preferences, culture, societals, and many other things. So the family arriving to a new neighborhood, and that's how the ghettos form. So in a simple decisions to move based on the desire to be surrounded by the similar neighborhoods can have a profound consequences of urban segregations, and that's how the segregation rule works in simulations. So I'll not go to the segregation rule in simulation, but this is the basic concept behind it. So over the time, the preferences of similarity can lead to a formation of different ghettos that you can see, and where the similar individuals clusters together stay and reinforce existing divisions to within the particular cities and different places. So, while in urban areas may be lived in different in theories, the reality is that the tendency to seek out similarity can lead to a segregations of communities. And this is also applies in computational point of view, also in the segregation model of what individual does, human behavior, talking about. So this is the societal context of how we form a different community in different places where we find a similar kind of people, and so ultimately, we call the individual people in a computational format is called the different agents who act as a selfishly and locally act locally. And from left to right, if you see that if they are diverse together, if someone individuals doesn't like it, they move and form a different area where the group can stay together. And then global level, this kind of gathers form in different countries. So this is the perspective of basically where the simulations come to the picture, and you can see that what you can do with it. I'll come to the bit later on stage. So as I talked about this ghetto, just an example to illustrate the complexities of human behavior with multiple diverse at play. Drivers, I mean, to say different aspects of human. So human behavior, as you know, this is a very complex and multifaceted phenomenon that has captivated the scholars and researchers across discipline over decades. So more than 5 6 decades, you can see that work in simulation work in this space. So understanding human behavior is obviously is like a solving a puzzle with countless pieces and representing a different aspects of our complex nature. This complexities presents what is known is more like a wicked problem, not game problem, and the challenge is is to intricate and multifacets the traditional problem-solving approach often fought short. So that's why we look at more new techniques. And when it comes to modeling human behavior, we face a unique also other problems like the multitude of the different variables, many of which are internal and do not readily quantifiable. So how do, take an example, how do variable A influence B to C extend to what we could simulate and analyze a situation? By drawing insights from the psychology, other area like neuroscience, sociology, anthropology, and other discipline, uh, researchers tried to develop a comprehensive model that captures the richness and diversity of human behavior. In recent years, coming in ongoing days, the convergence of the technology, as we know that GenAI and other stuff, the behavioral science has given rise to the field of human behavior simulations, which leads to a groundbreaking research within the far-reaching implications that we can see. We leverage the advanced modeling technique and data analytics to capture the dynamic interplay between social, psychological, economic, and environmental factors that we can simulate. Through the simulations and experiment, we can simulate the complexities of human behavior, exploring mainly the different scenarios and outcomes. So all the what if scenarios you can do it in silico before try it in the real world. So that's the power of human, mainly the simulations. So it has, I say that it's a long history, but the earliest attempts is done in the space of simulations on human behavior. You can find it in the space of psychology and sociology, where the researchers used a simple models to experiment, understand human cognitions and social interactions. So take an example of B.F. Skinner's work, which is a notable example on psychologist who developed operant conditioning experiments to understand the behavior of animals and humans, specifically the reinforcement learning kind of stuff. And simulations offers us, as I said, a fresh perspective, a scientific research distinct from the traditional method of induction and deduction technique. I'll not go induction and deduction technique more in details, but we know that the more advancement in the simulation space done by Robert Axelrod, who is a scientist and view the simulation as a method of conducting thought experiments. He was been also awarded with the National Science Medal by the Barack Obama, past president of US. So, as we keep saying that the modeling, the agent-based modeling and the simulation is a powerful technique that has a number of applications we see in last few years, including the applications to the real business problems. The recent advancement in the computational power, graphics processing, artificial intelligence have accelerated the development of human behavior simulations. For early attempts at a simple agent-based model to sophisticated virtual populations, we call the synthetic populations, are capable to realism, more of not realism, or more realistic interactions of fields that evolved rapidly in recent times, and we see a lot of applications also. So the applications of human behavior, as you see that is vast and varied, spanning multiple industries and domains. Is already been said by the president that it is applicable. It is seen in the space of healthcare, virtual patients, medical simulations are evolving. Medical trainings and treatments plannings are going on. In educations also, virtual classrooms, tuition systems, enhancing the learning outcomes and accessibility. We've seen a lot of examples and success stories in gaming and entertainments, realistic characters, immersive experiences, different audience in worldwide, for marketing to advertisements, defense system, social security. Human behavior simulations are shaping the way we understand and interact with the world that is around us, the technological world. So this is all about the background of what we do generally. Now I would like to hand over to Suman, who will talk about more on simulations in specific, with some more components with a real use case that we handled recently. Okay, so what to Suman?
Yeah, thanks. Am I audible to you guys? I just wanted to check if my microphone is working. Yeah, thanks. So,
Yes,
good afternoon, esteemed guest. Good afternoon, all the faculties that are here. So
Suman, you are going to share the screen, or should I share?
uh, let me share it from my end.
Okay, fine.
Thank you. So let me share my screen. Just someone can confirm if it is visible.
Yes, now it is.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So I'll start with some of the use cases, specific behavior models that and what are the approaches for creating such behavior models. So I'll just list down few of the basic options or basic approaches towards creating behavior models. And one of the model approaches is towards model extension. And the model extension basically talks about that if you already have a model which is suitable for a particular use case, what you can do is that you can identify what are the additional variables or additional factors that can make enhance that model in a more suitable way, and that could be used for your current data. The another approach for creating a suitable behavior model is behavior composition. So what happens is many cases you don't have an existing suitable model already given to you. So in that case, what you can have is that from the existing literature, you identify set of relations or set of fragments that are there, and you form a model by essentially stitching up these fragments, and you compose the behavior model in that way. So that's the second option of behavior composition. So we'll focus a little bit more about the second one. Third approach is where you basically are you known, that means you don't have any specific model or relations to begin with. So you have to cook up some model based on the grounded theory that are there present in the literature, and then you need a more rigorous way to validate such models, and you would generally would need surveys or experiments to validate such models. So I'm talking about the behavior models and how to operationalize it. So I think all of you have mentioned about that modeling and simulation could be one way. While there is another way of analytic methods where you basically identify a model which can be identified based on the properties of the system, and you can use that mathematical model to essentially identify what would be the output at the end of the simulation. But for complex systems, such as if you are looking at human behavior in a complex settings, organizational settings, you would perhaps need a simulation software which essentially replicates the real world system in a simulation system. And these complex behavior models could be helpful in generating a lot of what if scenarios, which was not possible in a normal mathematical based model. So here, if we zoom at specifically the human behavior modeling, we basically know that every person can show very complex behaviors, and to know what would be the implication of different behaviors of population at a very high level, which is difficult. So in order to do that, we can adopt a bottom-up approach where rather than simulating the whole set of macro outcomes, you basically simulate individual people. And this approach can be called agent-based modeling and simulation. And here what happens is that you have micro level entities called agents. And in agents, what you can have is that you can make agents do anything they want. So it could be an employee of an organization, it could be customers, it could be investors, it could be car drivers based on the particular use case. And they have individual behaviors as well. That means they are not only fodder to the process overall, but they can interact with other agents, evolve. Goal of such simulations would be to identify at a macro level what is the outcome, such as what would be the productivity of a whole team, what is the attrition rate. If it's a consumer behavior simulation, you probably look at the footfalls, you look at if it's a traffic simulation, you look at traffic choke points, different SLAs. So that would be the goal of the overall simulation. So let's talk a little bit about the agent-based simulation. So in agent-based simulations, agent is the primary thing, a primary entity, and agents have a sense of autonomy. That means it can take decisions without any central authority. So they can exhibit human-like behavior. That means they can you can make them stop, you can make them drink in a simulated environment. They can communicate with other agents and also in the environment. They might have roles, So one can be, for example, a team supervisor, another could be a member of a team. As well as in agent-based simulation, you can make agents evolve. So based on the previous state and the interaction with the other agents, they can show adaptive behavior, they can mimic other agents as well. So what consists of the agent world? So the agent world is basically the environment within which the agent operates. So the world essentially consists of the topology. So it could be an office, it could be a road network, and the world essentially is also a agent. So it can have behavior as well. For example, if it's a traffic simulations, there are traffic lights which can be driven by a schedule. If it's a fire simulation or evacuation simulation, there might be a fire which can break out and evolve with time as well. So within the world, within the world you have agents, and agents, as I already mentioned, they could be doing a lot of things. They could be interacting with each other. They could be interacting with the world itself. And the outside, what happens is that what you generate as an outcome. So the outcome of interest could be at a very macro level. So it could be overall footfalls in the stores. It could be what is the average time it has taken to go to a destination if it's a traffic simulation. So if you look at the agent-based systems, they can be broadly classified into these 4 quadrants. So I'll just use the pointer. So the first one is minimalistic models. So minimalistic models will have simplistic behavior, and they will also have a smaller number of population. So these models will be driven by simpler rules, and they are while they are very apt for delivering the idea, but they would be lacking in terms of the complexity of behavior that generally a human have. So if you look at the second quadrant, where you still have a rather simpler model, but you have a lot of complexity in terms of the population of agent or the variation of the agent. So these models are called very large scale simulation models. So if you look at urban transport simulation or evacuation models, or you can look at pandemic spread in the population, those fall into the category of very large scale models. While we operate mostly on the third quadrant, which is the behaviorist model, and the reason for our focus is that it has multiple dimensions of behavior coming together from psychological, physiological, social context of the people, and it's very hard to build such a model. The last quadrant is basically where you can think of as a holy grail, where you have the rich complexity of agents as well as the very large scale in terms of the sheer population of people. So these could be something which would be needing an advanced computation. While the recent advancement makes this as within reach, we can think of creating such BLS behavioral rich models, and the implication of such models could be huge. So I'll just have put down few use cases based on the behavior rich models and the complexity of the richness of the model. So the first model is basically talking about an organization context, where you basically use the model to understand the impact of stress on productivity and absenteeism in the organizational setting. So here what happens is that the agents, while they are showing complex rich behavior, they are identical to each other and they do not interact much with each other. The second model is where you look at retail settings, and here what we have done is that we have looked into consumer product evaluation and how they move within the stores. So in this case, there are multiple behavior models at play, as well as there are movements model for agents as well. The third model is a little bit more complex, where you look at airport settings. So the goal of the simulation was to look at what happens if within an airport there is the airport boarding gate change, or what happens if there are multiple displays board at different places, whether that impact the information spread and all. So in this case, we model different group of agents having different personalities. So we are calling them personas. And you can test out different intervention within such simulations. The backbone of such models was something called need-based behavior model, which essentially drives how a person would interact with different entities or different service points within the airport based on their needs. The fourth one is very close to what we can call the VLS systems, very large scale systems. So here we are modeling synthetic city with road networks, office areas, residential areas, and the primary task of such systems would be to creation of synthetic population that is living in this area. And how do you assign different activities at different time and different locations for different activities for such agents? So the next slide, I'm talking about a little bit about how do you assign behavior to agents, especially in the cases where the behavior is coming from the previous literature or the previous body of knowledge. So we basically create a behavior repository, and we rely on this repository to assign agent different activity patterns, state transitions, the behavior relations between different behavior variables. Then such behavior repository can assign to agent, and which can make it consumer, it can make it a driver or anything based on the activity patterns that it has, as well as the transition patterns it has. You use such agents within a synthetic population. So synthetic population, you have to create such that it is statistically equivalent to the real population of interest. And then you instantiate such agent in a simulation platform. So simulation platform could be agnostic. It could be something which, so there are a lot of simulation software. I specifically recommend agent-based simulation for such simulations. So simulated world, what you can do is you can instantiate such agents, and then you can do experimentation within that. So what is the part of the behavior repository? The repository creation itself is a tedious task because what it essentially contain is set of behavior relations that is governing the agent behavior, as well as different activity patterns. So one of the ideas could be is that you can use the previous body of knowledge in terms of paper database, and you identify or you extract relations between the behavior variables or complete model itself from this set of paper and restore in this repository. So the relations can be extracted from past literature using web crawling, and you can select relevant paper, relevant sections by building paper classifiers, section classifiers. So in the table, I have just shown a set of raw relations that is extracted from such papers, which essentially gives you some context of the paper, the predictor variable, the response variable, and what is the relation between all of them. So at the end, I'll just mention this particular use case to illustrate our example in a better way. So this use case, what we are doing is that we are simulating an organizational behavior in a smaller setting. This organization is called BPO, which has like every day the task comes. I'll go to the next slide to just illustrate it more. So we basically model a BPO team where you get a task set of tasks from the customer every day. So you have a task pool, and then a manager is assigning tasks to the team. You can have a team consisting of 50 employees, and there is an additional set of employees at bench, which is called bench strength. And the task completion can be reported every day to the customers as a set of SLA reports. So these kind of settings of organizations are stressful environment. And what happens is that there are many cases where this set of employees within the team reports high absenteeism or low productivity. So the question to ask would be that what should be our bench strength in such setting so that we can maintain an acceptable SLA. So one of the SLA is low turnaround time. That means average time to complete the task should be low enough. And there are other cases as well. For example, you can look look at what if the task coming each day to have very high variations. How can you apply some interventions and check whether the interventions have good, they basically works in a good way. So for this set of settings, we have used the behavior model, which is workload stress productivity model. So this model essentially looks at how workload affect the positive or negative effect or emotion of the person, and it leads to a stress leading to lower productivity. Stress can also lead to absenteeism. That means people have high chances of being absent on a particular day. So this is the behavior model that is coming from the repository. Now within the simulation, we can do multiple what if scenarios. So we can identify if a team receives a spike in the workload, what happens? And if team faces a crisis, that means say some team members are unavailable, what happens? And you can also mention what are the set of interventions that you can test in the simulation environment and see how they work. So one such example is shown here. So we have basically looked at task arrival as a important contributor. So if you have very high variance in terms of task arrival, what happens is that your turnaround time gets very high, especially when the tasks have very high variations. So we apply a strategy called leaky bucket as an intervention, which don't allow all the tasks coming each day to go to the team member, but you keep a task in the set of a bucket, and you allow a smoother, constant outflow of tasks from this bucket to the team. And essentially within the simulation, you can perform what would be the optimal level of bucket size and bucket outflow so that your turnaround time is within the SLA requirements. So that is all for the human behavior simulations from our side. If you have any questions, you do let me know.
Thank you, Siddharth sir and Suman sir, for your insightful deliberation on simulation. I would like to request to participant, if you have any question, you can write it down on our question answer box. And meanwhile, I would like to request Dr. Dumblekar, Vinod Dumblekar sir, if he would like to add on something to the presentation or topic in this regards.
Shall I wait for the question answers? Waiting for comments from the other listeners?
Yeah, yes,
I have
sir.
too many questions to ask, that's why. So I'll ask a little later.
Oh, okay, sir.
Okay,
I
let me
think you
chat while other questions are coming in. There's nothing yet. Probably the questions I asked might provoke newer questions. First of all, Dr. Sarkar's talk was illuminating. I like the idea about the wicked problems, mainly because it has too many variables. Wicked problems lead to an objective method of arriving at, I don't know whether the word is right, conclusions. You know, the best possible way of coming to conclusions. To Dr. Sarkar, I have a question. Does the ghetto idea, is it similar to gated communities? Is it similar to clusters as once upon a time referred to by the strategy man Kotler?
Yeah, so this segmentations, the recent form, if I talk about the marketing guru of Kotler, what he said, talk about from the business point of view of segmentation. This is nothing but based on the consumer or individual preferences. They might not need to be stay at the same place, okay? But the segregation rule applies the same in the similar fashion. Okay, based on the preferences, what they look at, and the other choices. So all the set of criteria individual applies. It is applies to the society. It is applied for the consumptions also, consumption of products and services. Yeah. So yeah, naturally you're right. Both are same.
We had no inkling that your excellent talk would be leading to what Mr. Suman Kumar, gave us with a lot of visuals. Visuals are fascinating. I learned a lot about modeling just by watching his visuals, and I have a question. What exactly would be a non-agent based simulation? For example, would this be a non-agent based simulation? If I have two cells with a couple of numbers and a third would be, let us say, a product of the values in those two cells, would that be an example of a non-agent based simulation?
Suman, if you're there, if you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
take the
sure.
questions, or I can answer.
Sure, sure. So,
This is to Mr. Suman Kumar.
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So essentially, in agent-based simulation, what is the crux of agent-based simulation is basically set of agents, right? And if the agents can interact with each other or communicate with each other, and they have an behavior towards adaptation as well, that means they can adapt based on the certain rules or the settings that you have given, then you can essentially say that this simulation is an agent-based simulation. However,
I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. Would a role play be defined as an agent-based simulation?
so in role play, if you have a simulated environment where you have different roles a person is given, but they are essentially behaving just as per their rules, that means the behavioral rules that is given, then while this is an agent-based simulation, this is not utilizing the evolution element of the agent-based simulation. So evolution is when you interact with something and then something changes in terms of your state. For example, you interact with someone and then your behavior changed in response to that, or you communicated something to another agent and that agent that did something else. If it is agent is very much static in terms of its behavior, then it's basically defeating the purpose of using agent-based simulation. You can have other simulations such as DES, where agents are particularly constrained and you have a central authority which determines the behavior of different agents. So there in that cases, a DES could also be used, discrete event simulation. But when there is adaptation happens, when agents can evolve, then essentially DES fails, and then you have to use agent-based simulation on paradigms which are bottom-up, not top-down.
In one of your slides, you presented predictor one and
sure.
But a prediction would be more connected to a regression. You mentioned correlation over there. I didn't get it right.
Sure. So in a sense, the relations would be connected based on the regressions only, or it could be complex as well. So regression could be one way where how it is connected, but if there are so if the models have lot of moderator mediator variables, then you can essentially identify which moderator or which mediator variables essentially is causing some effect to your response variable. However, what I have mentioned is just a form of row relation extraction from our classifier. So from classifier, we identify set of sections in the paper where these relations are mentioned. And if you look at the papers, most of them talk about whether they are correlated, highly correlated, or they are negatively correlated or impacting one each other. So that's where the sample was giving you a relational data, but it was just showing correlation value. What we aim to achieve is that you basically extract beta coefficients of co-regression, as well as you identify which are mediators, which are moderators, and what are the settings within which this particular model has been trained on, so which we call context. So if you see, the first of the column was context. So context is also very important.
Thank you, sir. I think I've got one idea each from Dr. Sarkar and from you, Mr. Suman Kumar, which I could incorporate in my own games and simulations. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Dr. Keshwani?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Vinod sir, Sarthak sir, and Siddharth sir, and Suman sir. Now, with due permission of Dr. Vinod Dumblekar, can I invite the next speaker? He's already there.
Jega.
Okay, sir. Sir, I'm inviting second speaker of the plenary session 2, Mr. Jagat Iswaran Manoharan, Team Effectiveness Specialist, Stimulation Designer, and Thought Catalyst, Accordia Training and Development, Malaysia. Mr. Manoharan is an international speaker and thought catalyst in the area of team leadership and team effectiveness. He was the first Malaysian to sit on the board of the North American Simulation Gaming Association. He is listed as 100 most inspirational LinkedIn icons in Malaysia for 2019 and 2020. He's a former president of Malaysian Association of Professional Speakers. Jega influence extend to radio programs and prestigious conferences worldwide, including NASAGA, NASAGA, ISAGA, and MASAGA, MASAGA, and the National Human Capital Conference exhibition. He's engaging and transformative ideas continue to shape the landscape of team leadership and organizational effectiveness. Heartiest welcome to you, sir. And this is a very fortunate day that we are meeting you virtually. I would like to request, sir, kindly take over the session and enlighten us with your knowledge and wisdom words. Over to you, Manoharan, sir. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shweta. You can call me Jega. In Malaysia, Manoharan is my father's name. Right. So you can just call me Jega, will do. And thank you very much. It was nice meeting all of you here. And Dr. Vinod, nice to see you again. So now what my topic here, can I just share my slides first? Okay, maybe before I get into the sharing of the slides, okay, maybe before I get into sharing of the slides, I would just like to highlight the fact that I am not a digital simulation designer. I don't do digital simulation. Mine is very much analog simulation, classroom, experiential learning. And not that we don't fancy digital, it's just that we've been so much involved in the area of using analog and the interactivity that happens, the real life interaction and all. So we are sort of like, quote unquote, addicted to it. So we are going to, so I'm going to give you my perspective of behavior simulation in a human behavior simulation in that kind of scenario, the scenario which we would call as analog scenario. So let me just share that. Right. Okay. Now I hope you can see my slides over there. And could you see my pointer coming there? Anyway. Are you able to see any pointer on the screen?
No.
Not yet. Not yet.
No. Okay, fine. That'll be all right. I can switch it from here. Okay, so I'm going to be touching on the element of what we call as low fidelity simulation for high understanding of human behavior. So the idea is here we are trying to understand human behavior, but we kind of like the idea of using what we consider as a low fidelity simulation. So let me just make myself clear what we mean by this low fidelity and high fidelity simulation. Actually, it's quite simple. It's just a lot of words over there. Low fidelity means it's far away from the reality. The fidelity level is actually quite low compared to the real world scenario. So the real world situation could be something else, but we pick a scenario which is totally different from there, and therefore we call that a fidelity simulation. A high fidelity simulation has very high realism to it, mimicking the real world situation that a player or a participant is going to be involved in, the learners basically, okay? So if the learners are in a particular situation and you create a simulation that is very close to that decision making, all the considerations of the real world there, then we call that as a high fidelity. So an example of a low fidelity will be like live action role play, which is very effective because it takes people out of the norms of their world and shifts them to a totally different world. But the behavior aspects of human don't change. You see, whenever you go into a different world or what, the behavior aspects, the way we make decisions are quite very much ingrained in our thought DNA or our subconscious, or the way we operate, the way we process information in our head. Then we have, but this whole thing is actually a spectrum. Low fidelity, high fidelity is actually very much a spectrum. So slightly go up the low fidelity spectrum, you'll come to what we call as thematic business simulation. Thematic business simulations are like kind of simulations where you play, there you are going across this jungle and you are trying to reach the other end, and there are so many challenges that you go through, a storyline, a frame, a theme behind it. Okay, and then you go up a bit, you have financial board games, like financial board game. One very common, very well-known one, it would be like Robert Kiyosaki's board game, if you have played Cash Flow 101. Or there are other financial board games that is used for teaching finance for non-finance. They create a scenario which is not your industry. Maybe it's a drink bottling company or a bicycle factory or what, and you're supposed to figure out how to optimize production and make maximum use of your capital as well. So those are what you call as medium level fidelity. Slightly you go up, a disaster scenario. How do you train first responders to deal with disaster scenarios and all? So they are going up the spectrum. The really high up the spectrum is like a flight simulator. A flight simulator is very, very close to realism. It's almost real because whatever decision you make over there, including the mathematical calculations and the angle of the rudder and all that, actually turns out to be the real response of how a plane would respond in a real plane situation. And they can simulate different weather conditions and for you to make decisions over there. So what I want to do is I want to focus on the far left-hand side of it, which is called a low fidelity simulation. And there are a lot of benefits of actually first using a low fidelity simulation. For the first thing is that it takes the pressure off the need to create realism for the designers. Now, here is actually one very important thing when it comes to simulation design is that sometimes we can get, we're trying to get something which is real enough for the participants or the employees who are coming for our training. And unknowingly, we can get into territories that we are not familiar with, and they are very, very familiar with them. So example of that is once we were conducting a training for a team of people from the oil and gas industry. And in the simulation, they are supposed, the simulation is all about building a bridge. Okay? It was supposed to be building a bridge simulation, but the client actually said, no, can you change the bridge to a oil platform? It'll be close enough to their world and all. And that is actually a very big danger for us. The reason is because it's a territory that they are very familiar with and we know nothing about it. All right, so they are very familiar with an oil platform. And if you want to simulate an oil platform, what will happen with people from the oil platform is that they will look at it and say, no, this is not how what is it in the real oil platform. No, you're wrong about this. And after that, you get into an argument and you can't really proceed with what you intend to do. So it really takes the pressure off the designer. So secondly is that it avoids going back to the first point there, it avoids the distraction, unnecessary distraction of familiarity and norms. Okay, so you do not want this familiarity and norms to actually distract you. And one of the biggest benefit is that we can isolate certain behavior that we like to focus on. It's pretty much like when you were in school last time, when you were studying science in school. If you remember, your science teacher would say that, assuming we could eliminate the effect of air friction on this vehicle. And I think you're probably familiar with that. Let's say we are studying acceleration, force equals mass times force, studying force equals mass times acceleration. As the vehicle is accelerating, in order to teach them the calculation, you make certain assumptions. The assumption is like assuming that the air friction is negligible. Actually, it's not negligible in real world, but for the purpose of learning, we make it negligible. So likewise, the idea of using low fidelity simulation is that you can get into that zone of let's take this as negligible, let's eliminate this, so that we can focus on very specific behavior. Otherwise, what's going to happen is the simulation is going to have too many variables in it. And the very fact that people have to juggle with those variables, we cannot focus on the behavior that we want to focus on in the final outcome of the learning. So where do we start? Now, this is all very good. How do we start doing something like this? And if you have a particular set of behaviors that you want to do, is that where do I start? What do I do? So I'm going to just share with you a very simple framework that we personally have used several times, in fact. including a latest example that we just rolled out for one client about a couple of weeks back. So how do we start? The first thing is, if you want to simulate a human behavior, we need to identify what are the behaviors that we are intending to simulate. And it's good to actually be as specific as possible and cover all angles. What are the behaviors that we are trying to simulate over there? So we first have to identify that. And the next one is that we need to ask ourselves, what are the scenarios or situation that closely resembles those behaviors? Is there any scenarios outside the real world? I'll come to an example later. You'll be able to understand it better. And the next thing is that how can the rules of the game be modified to fit the behavior we intend to focus on? Now, let me just show you with this diagram. Maybe that will be a bit more easier. So where we start is that we usually start with what we call as a frame. We need to choose a frame that we want to start on. Okay. We want to start with a particular frame. And within that frame, there should be choices and consequences that resemble those behaviors that we are planning to target. So if we choose a particular frame, we want to know whether within that frame, the player's decision or the individual's decision that they make within the game or the scenario, can that be mimicked, or can we draw a parallel to the kind of behavior that we would like to explore? Okay, so for that, I'm just going to run through this process. Okay, recently we had a client who actually asked us about a compliance stream. Okay, so they wanted us to, actually was not, the full thing was not compliance. There were a few other elements, but so they had 4 tenets that they wanted to address on. And one of the tenet was actually on compliance. Now, how do you train a person on compliance? I mean, they already have enough compliance rules. The rules are already in place. Not that they don't know what compliance is. They are very well aware about the rules and all, but yet compliance is becoming a major issue in the organization. So one other thing that we identify is that possibly they don't understand or don't appreciate the importance of it, or they have certain resentment towards the compliance itself, the rules, why the rules ever existed, and therefore compliance is actually becoming an issue over there. So, I mean, how do you train a person to talk about the importance of compliance? You can talk about stories. You can talk about case studies. In this case, it was a safety training. So it was related to safety issues. We can show countless videos about the various forms of accidents that can happen at a workplace, or the kind of misfortune a company goes through when they trade compliance for profit. So all that has been done, and I think to some extent it has created some level of impact. But what's the next level? So they said that, can you figure out a simulation to make sure that people understand what compliance is? So what we did was we just first of all asked some deep questions about the behavior that we want to simulate. So in the terms of behavior, is that number one is that there are violations of rules. That's one of the behavior that's happening among the players or among the learners over there. There are violations of rules, and people must understand that there are consequences for certain violations. And the other thing is, we also wanted to for the participants themselves to realize what is their own motivation to violate. We can easily say that violation to compliance is because of people don't care, or people are irresponsible, but that's too surface level. You're not addressing the real issue. There are deep-rooted motivation in people on why they actually violate a thing. So what we want to do at the end of the day, we want to shift this behavior, right? Okay, once they've identified it, we want to shift this behavior from breaking rules to being compliant. Okay, so we started with that first. We identified what are the behaviors that we would like to get into the simulation. And the next thing is that we wanted to find a scenario. Now, as I told you just now in the diagram there, the frame, what frame would bring close enough to this? Because you see, when it comes to design of a simulation, is that the faster we find the frame, the faster we can design. The idea here is all about rapid design, rapid prototyping, and you want to roll it out quickly. Because in the corporate world is that they ask you for something, they expect it to be delivered within about, timelines are very short now, 3 weeks, 2 weeks and all. So we have to quickly get into designing, testing them. Sometimes we are lucky, we get about 6 weeks there. So we have to roll it out very fast. So the faster we can find a frame, the quicker the design process can actually happen. So in this case, when you talk about frame, is that one is you can start, the most easiest way is to start with an existing game. If there is an existing game out there, a commercial game or whatever, a childhood game or what, that has elements of choices and consequences that resemble the behavior that we are planning to simulate. Now, the second option is look at analogies of theory or situations that mirrors these circumstances of the simulated behavior. Now, let me just show you through an example. Therefore, you will have a better understanding about that. Okay. Now, I told you just now about frame, choices, and consequences. We are trying to find a frame to work on. So what we did was we tried looking at different frames that are already available. So one of the frame is actually a game called Cocoa Plantation by Takashige Otsuki. Now, Takashige Otsuki is from Keala University, Japan. I met Otsuki in Bangkok in 2018, where he presented a paper on the cocoa plantation. And the idea of the cocoa plantation game was to make students understand why in Africa, the cocoa plantations in Africa, they end up using child labor over there. So the whole idea was actually, the thing is about understanding behavior, but it's also there about, the talk is about how you can come up with public policy so that these farmers will actually not use child labor. Now, you can actually go on fines and all that, and sometimes it doesn't seem to be working very well. And being countries like Africa, they are very vast. You don't have enough manpower to actually go and solve, to go and enforce law and enforcement on every part of the farmland in the country. So what they did was they came up with a simulation to make students understand the real scenario behind it and see if they can formulate something based on the simulation. So that was a game over there. The other option was actually to look at theories that are really available out there, something like the tragedy of the commons. So if you are familiar with the tragedy of the commons is all about people who take resources from a particular place, and when you utilize them or over consume certain resources faster than it can replenish itself, then you are going to hurt the population or going to hurt the community over there. And usually that is explained through a very famous analogy of cow in a grassland. If you have cows in a grassland and a few farmers are over there, and if the cow farm grows bigger, then you're going to take grass from the grassland and there won't be any more grass for the cows. So, and that means that farmers are not going to have grass for their cows. So that's actually a very common analogy. And that analogy can be turned into a simulation as well. Okay, Fish Bank is one example of that. We created another simulation on the tragedy of the commons called Graysville Farm. So similar thing. The other possible thing is to take a scenario which is totally away from what they are doing right now. Maybe a bribery in an agency, whether it's a government agency or private agency, law and enforcement, police or what. Take a scenario like that, a bribery scenario, and let's create a simulation out of it. So there could be various options that we can take. But the most important thing is that which one connects fast to the choices and consequences that you can actually mirror to your behaviors that you want to simulate. So in our cases, we took the cocoa plantation because that was the fastest that we could do. And we saw that there was very strong resemblance of it. But cocoa plantation simulation itself cannot be used because the scenarios are a little bit different over there. So here comes the next step. The next step comes into the design aspect of the game itself or design aspect of the simulation. When it comes to design aspect, You start once again with the frame that you have chosen, whether it's a game or whether it's an analogy or what. But then you are working on the mechanics and rules. Modify the mechanics, modify the rules, and you're going to do many reiteration of the mechanics and rules until you can start seeing evidence of the behavior showing up in the game itself. So what we did was we took that cocoa plantation thing, but what we did to avoid confusion with the cocoa plantation game, we just changed it into a corn plantation. Okay? We just say corn plantation, but we changed certain elements in the game there. Instead of child labor, we set an option of actually using permit workers or illegal workers. And the game actually had a credit score system. We had a credit system to score them, but also it had a progression. So what we did was we said that, okay, what is the rule of the game that we can change to mimic compliance in a real world scenario? So you say, look at the real world, why do compliance ever come about? Compliance always come after a disaster, whether it's an airline compliance or whether it's a safety, fire safety compliance or cybersecurity compliance. It is always after some major thing that happened in the past. But today we are a little bit more proactive. We try to predict what things that may happen, and we take a proactive step towards it. But usually the origin of compliance is based on something that happened in the past, and therefore rules were added to it. And what we wanted was, we wanted the participants to really understand what happened in the past and why the compliance today exists at the workplace. Now, for that to happen, we want them to go through their in other words, we're trying to simulate a few generations, or at least about 20 years of history within a span of the classroom itself, right? So what we did was, the game runs on years, on account of number of years as it progresses. And in the first year, there is no regulations at all. You can use illegal workers, you can use permit workers and all. Guess what? What happened in the classroom? When there is zero consequence, there is no fine, there is no errors and all that, every 100% of the classroom used illegal workers, which was beneficial when it came to the learning part of it. But after that, as the game went on, then we introduced the element of government announcement. And the government announcement were mimicking once again the real world scenario. So these are the kind of rules that we changed in the game, is that when the government announcement comes through, and the government announcement is all about forces from global geopolitical forces that are coming in, and therefore the government has to up the game a little bit. So there is a potential fine, but still there is a bad process that it may happen, may not happen. So we created this scenario. At the end of the day is, what we did was we kept adding on to the rules, and they started observing their own behavior. From non-compliance, they became compliant. So therefore, it was simple for us to cover that whole topic about compliance. And now then, when we did the debrief of it, at the end of the day, we did the debrief. We asked them, now do you understand why compliance exists? Absolute silence in the classroom. Everybody got the point. Now, no amount of lecture was going to convince them on that, because they themselves saw what happened in the classroom. The fact that when there is no compliance, there's no rules, nobody will be following it, or nobody would want to take proactive precaution. So therefore, compliance exists. So somehow it worked out in that scenario for that. All right. So in a nutshell, basically, when it comes to designing a thing, identify the behaviors, choose the frame that you can actually start with, and quickly get into the design process of changing the mechanics and rules. And this has to go through multiple iteration. You'll have to do testing in small groups. Never roll out a simulation from paper to the classroom. It will be very embarrassing. Trust me, I've done that before. So so this is it. This is something that I like to just share. I hope it will be useful to everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jega sir. Your presentation and your explanation is indeed a very well explained, and we have understood the numbers of concept and conjunctions in between the simulation and the real world and the behavior simulation. Now, I would like to request to the August participants if they would like to ask any question. Otherwise, I'll definitely go to our session chair if he is having any question, so we can proceed with those questions. Over to you, sir, Vinod, sir.
There are 3 questions in the Q&A. Probably you could read them out so that Jiga
Yeah.
can read them.
Yeah, okay, sir. So there's a one question, is the question is, Sir Jaga, sir, as low fidelity situation is far from the real world, how they can be useful in student life? This is a question raised by the student itself.
Okay, as low fidelity situation is far from real world, how can they be useful in student life? Well, I hope I can have a bit more context to this question. I'm trying my best to see. I'll just try to put a context to it and see if that makes sense or not. I'm assuming the student is actually talking about personal life, right? Personal life. Now, one good example of that is like if you take a board game on financial management, financial planning, you're going to be playing a board game on let's take cash flow 101 by Robert Kiyosaki. Most of the elements over there are not applicable in the Indian context or even in the Malaysian context. From the rules of the game, which is related to stock market or related to real estate, it's not applicable. But the principles are applicable. So the whole idea of using low fidelity simulation is to get rid of the noise of the world and get into the principles. And it's actually the principles that are really needed for us to learn something. So therefore, that's probably my answer for that question.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, any more question, Vinod, sir, from your side?
There is a question here. I think Jaga can answer that. How can simulation activity be actually connected to real life, especially at the workplace? I know you have explained this to some extent, but probably the questioner wants something specific to the question itself.
Okay, Dr. Vinod, the question is, how can simulation be connected
to real life in the workplace?
Okay. Well, it's definitely so much connected to the real life workplace. The reason is because we have a saying. The saying goes like this: anytime a person is playing a game, any game for that matter, it's more or less an indication of how they play the game of life. If you look at some people playing certain game, and those who always like to cheat in a particular game, they'll hide the dice or they will try to do something funny and all that. Chances are, if you look at their real life, it's a bit of resemblance to what they do in their real world, their real life. So what happens in a simulation or a game situation is that they become witness to their own behavior. Instead of me coming and telling, or a facilitator coming and telling, or their colleague coming and telling that, hey, do you know that you tend to do this? Let them go through the simulation and they witness their own behavior over there. Now, for that to happen, it has to be facilitated well. The facilitation process and the debriefing process is very, very important. There are a lot of facilitative questions that can be asked. A simple question like this is like, for example, somebody played a game and their profits did not reach a certain height. And we can always ask, okay, what decisions did you make in that game that caused your profits not to be high? Or we overspent on this and we did not allocate on this and all that. Now, my next question is, if it can happen here, where else is this happening? That's it. That's the only question I'm going to ask, and I'm going to stop over there, and they will start having a thing. Oh, okay, yeah, maybe. All right. So that's it. The idea is not for us to come and put it on their face, So we are just going to create the scenario and let them bear witness to it. But you know what? If you say that for some people they will be oblivious to it, yes, they will be. Some people, they can go through the best simulation in the world and still come out of it and say that, you know what, I feel my boss should attend that. I feel the faculty dean should attend that. Not me. Yeah, some people will be people then.
True. Thank you so much, sir. I think we are through with all the questions. So can we move ahead, Vinod, sir?
Yeah. Thank
So
you, Jagga.
now, yeah, thank
As
you so much.
usual, brilliant and very simple explanation for things that are complicated. In this session, I learned about the theory of low-fi simulations. I knew the practice of it. We are not only the only Malaysian in Nasaga, but you are the only Malaysian who's played two of my low-profile, low-fidelity games way back in 2018 in Thailand. So I would like to clap for that. Okay, to be serious, you have explained the game elements very well. You didn't mention frame game, or was that deliberate? Yeah, that's a question.
So again, the frame game.
Yeah. It would be ideal, isn't it, to take out elements and substitute it with new elements and modify the game, etc. The way you converted that cacao game into something else. I think that would be a frame game.
That's right. It'll be easier. Frame games are the most simplest way because there's already a road that has already been built. You don't have to work things out from scratch.
When you mentioned that science experiment with friction and all that, I suddenly remembered that statement, that Latin expression, ceteris paribus in economics. It broadly says all things being equal. Okay, to be very clear so that everybody else understands, how do you rate snakes and ladders, Monopoly, Ludo, and Catan along that low-fi, hi-fi spectrum, which is really low fidelity, which is closer to high fidelity of these 3 or 4 that I mentioned? Snakes and ladders, Monopoly, Ludo, and Catan. This is for the benefit of everybody listening.
Okay. When I say low fidelity is one element. Let's not confuse low fidelity with complexity. So a low fidelity could be like a game, okay, let's talk about Snake and Ladder. The oldest game in the world. Everyone would know that. Okay, Snake and Ladder is a very low fidelity game, but it's also not a complex game. It's a very simple game. It takes a short while to teach it. Some games like Settlers of Catan or Puerto Rico or these games, yes, they are low fidelity, but they are complex game. It takes time to learn it. And there are too many elements inside there. I would be very careful of using things like Settlers of Catan or any of those games, is because maybe if everyone in the crowd is actually a young people, and they are into board game. Not all young people are into board games too. If they are into board games, then fine, you have them. But otherwise, you're going to lose the player as well. So I like what Dr. Tyagi says. If it takes time to learn a game, when will they learn from the game? So people should be able to learn the game quickly so that they can learn something from the game. So the learning process must be not complicated at all. So sometimes what happens is that I have people coming to me and telling, Ojega, how do I design a very complex game? I said, first of all, the operative word itself is wrong. What is your idea of trying to create a complex game? Now, I don't want other people to copy it. Okay, that will come later. There are copyright laws for it. You can figure that out. Complex game, if the moment you start with that premise of I want to create a complex game, you are not putting the user in the center of the design. You are putting other factors in the center of design, and therefore it's not really going to work. So you talk about all those games, like a game like Ludo that is a nice frame that can easily be converted. A Monopoly, we have converted Monopoly so many times, but not playing Monopoly in the way it's being played. The frame of Monopoly, where you go around, land in different boxes, there are different choices, and they could do that. We use that for designing a game on for one of the organization. They wanted to learn about, they wanted their team members to learn about the core values of the company. So they wanted to know what behaviors should they exemplify for the core values. So why, when we show the game, is that the moment people look at the board, they say, I know what we're talking about. So that cut short the process of learning. Okay, so that's probably my answer for that question.
Thank you. I think you have clarified that low fidelity games also have to be simple, and that
Exactly.
if there's a game that's complex, I know Qatar is difficult. I barely won 2 of the games in my last 12 visits to the game. It is daunting to understand that, and it's a little difficult. Ludo and Monopoly, you have said it right. Monopoly lends itself to a lot of adaptations, and Ludo is fun. Any child can play that. Thank you for all these explanations today. I hope we can carry memories of whatever you told us. What you said about the theory of lo-fi games and simulations, I will remember for a long time and use it in my games also. I try to simplify my games as much as possible. Thank you, Tika. Thank you for a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Vinod sir, and thank you, Jega sir, for the nice session and nice interaction. We have learned a lot from both of you as well. Now, the entire journey of both plenary session was full of values, ideas, which fostering new inventions and innovations, having sustainability to a great extent. With this, we are moving towards the valedictory session of this convention. Now, I would like to take permission from the chairperson and the vice chairperson, ISTD Indore, for the valedictory session. Shall I move ahead for the valedictory session, ma'am?
Yes.
Thank you,
Sir
ma'am.
is also there. Dhar sir has joined.
Yeah, okay, ma'am. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Rishu Roy, Chairperson ISTD Indore chapter, for report presentation of this virtual convention. Over to you, ma'am.
Are my slides visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it now becoming full screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. So I, Dr. Rishu Roy, Chairperson ISTD, would like to present the report of today's regional convention of ISTD on the theme Simulations, Future of Learning and Development. The objective of this particular convention was to provide a platform to the various participants from industry and academia to discuss about the various aspects of simulation. The inaugural session was followed by the 2 plenary session and will be followed by the valedictory session. The conference was inaugurated by the lamp lighting and welcome of the chief guest, Ms. Anita Chauhan, National President, ISTD, New Delhi. Dr. Santosh Thar, National Council Member, ISTD, and Rector and Dean, FDSR, highlighted the relevance of the theme. She also elaborated that there is enormous potential of simulations for e-learning companies and how the global businesses are compelled to undergo transformative innovation through experiential learning, which provide competitive edge to their business. She also elaborated that games and activity include simulation users wherein they are actively involved. So, simulation also serve specific needs in a more secure environment and is nowadays considered a powerful tool which is designed to provide customized solution. Dr. Upinder Dhar, former National President, ISTD, and our Honorable Vice Chancellor, SVV, in his welcome address, emphasized on how simulation can facilitate learning and development. He also shared simulation-based learning facilitates experiential learning by allowing learners to make errors and experience the repercussions of these errors in a more secure environment, which not only boosts their confidence but also makes the overall experience more engaging. He also shared open and advanced 3D engine by Epic Games, which first showcased in 1998. He also, excuse me, yeah. He also referred to the contribution of Lockheed Martin in aerospace industry. Simulation is now not limited to gaming, and now it is extended to various other fields, providing competitive edge to business. He also had a thought-provoking discussions wherein he elaborated that ISTD trainers should not restrict themselves to the traditional techniques and rather equip themselves with modern methods of teaching learning process with respect to simulation. Chief guest and national president Ms. Anita Chauhan congratulated ISTD Indore chapter for organizing regional convention and enlightening the audience about the importance of simulation in learning and development. She opined that value of simulation-based learning and development lies in its ability to provide learners with hands-on insights through realistic and immersive experience. She further elaborated that skilled, proficient people are high on demand, wherein simulation has become the demand of the hour. Simulation learning also bridges the gap between theory and practical in real world, and that too in risk-free environment, which enhance problem-solving skills and helps in decision-making, which is much more improvised. The inaugural session concluded with the words of thanks proposed by Dr. Rishu Roy. Master of ceremony was Shweta Keswani. In the plenary session first, session chair was Dr. D.T. Manwani, and our first speaker was Dr. Ramesh Sharma, and our second speaker was Ms. Himani Chandorkar. Dr. Ramesh Sharma highlighted that cybersecurity simulations are crucial for preparing organizations to defend against and respond to cyber threats effectively by creating a realistic and a control environment that mimic potential security breaches. These simulations allow IT professionals to practice incident response, identify the difficulties, and improve overall security protocol. His presentation explored the latest development in cyber security simulation terminology, emphasizing how they enhance threat detection capabilities and resilience. He also highlighted the concept of digital arrest, that is, stealing customer data and disrupt the operations. For example, spear phishing attack, ransom attack, locking down of system, man in the middle of attack, insider threat, SQL injections, zero-day exploit was there, to name a few. He also highlighted that there are very popular simulation softwares like Metasploit, Scapy, open source phishing framework, Kingfisher, Wireshark 4.0 organizations to combat these kinds of cyber attacks. Ms. Himani Chandorkar explained the transformative potential of behavior simulation by elaborating how dynamic and immersive scenarios provide a fresh approach in L&D. She also highlighted various challenges encountered in realistic scenarios and process of making critical decision. She raised a very good question that when we have simulation for realistic situation, why don't we have simulation for our own managers and leaders, as it drives transformation at workplace, whether it is business kind of simulation or metaphoric kind of simulation. She used this codes for the simulation, human behavior simulation, that is game behind the games. These are the true responses in an authentic and helps engaging the measurable outcome. She also highlighted that design specification, game design, and game construction helps to build robust human behavior simulation. Dr. D.T. Manwani, in his concluding remark, elaborated that various countries are facing skill shortages, like Japan, 84%, and India, 61%. He also elaborated that L&D trends like gamification, upskilling and reskilling, micro-learning, hybrid learning, adaptive learning, etc. are the popular names. Following these trends, what organization can do is that they can develop a future-proof workplace with skills and knowledge needed to thrive in ever-evolving business landscape. In the plenary session 2, our session chair was Dr. Vinod Dumblekar. The first speaker was Mr. Siddharth Sarkar and Suman Kumar, and The second speaker was Mr. Jiga. Mr. Siddharth Sarkar elaborated that human behavior go through ghetto, a complex multifaceted phenomena and solving puzzles of high order complexity which presents a wicked problem across various disciplines. This is a powerful technique which has been there in last few years, including real world business problems. They illustrated the power and effectiveness of this technique through a used case in the field of organizational behavior. Mr. Suman Kumar highlighted various approaches for creating use case for specific behavior models. And he told that there are three kinds of models. First is the model of extension and reinforcement. The second model was behavior compensation model. And the third model was conceptual model based on various theories. He also elaborated that agent-based modeling, which is empowered by AI, it is a kind of system wherein AI models as a collection of autonomous decision-making entities called agents, which assesses situation and makes decision on the base of set of certain rules. Mr. Jiga categorized the human behavior simulation into two. First was the low fidelity simulation and another was high fidelity simulation. The low fidelity simulation, which is far from real world situation, is a powerful tool for deepening comprehension of human behavior. Low fidelity simulation allow the freedom to isolate and prioritize specific behavior over the multitude of variables in real world situation. This approach elevates the pressure of creating lifelike environments and sidesteps the distraction of social norms and familiar settings, thus creating a fresh place where we can explore different kinds of behavior. He also elaborated that central tendency to the efficacy of low fidelity simulation is the identification and isolation of specific behaviors for simulation. Through a simple framework, designers can pinpoint target behavior and various scenarios or situations that can be immediately used as a starting point for simulation design. In the concluding remarks, Dr. Vinod Dimblekar remarked on the agent-based simulation as one of the pioneering concepts in simulation. He also remarked that low-fidelity simulation can isolate certain behavior. What you want to focus thus could be useful at workplace through frame games. He also narrated that if you do not learn the game quickly, then you will learn, then when will you learn from the game? Keeping people in the center is more important than considering the other crucial factors. So that is all from my side. I think I pay gratitude to all the speakers, to all the participants for being here with us. Over to Shweta ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to request and invite Dr. Upinder Dhar, former National President ISTD and Honorable Vice Chancellor Shri Vaishnav Vidyapeeth Vishwavidyalaya Indore for the regional convention closing remarks. Over to you, sir.
Once again, good afternoon. Now we are towards evening. Good evening to all of you. Well, in this conclave, regional convention we call it, we had very highly enriching presentations by all the resource persons. I would like to thank all the resource persons for sharing their rich knowledge and experience. I would also like to thank the organizing committee for choosing this appropriate topic for this year's convention. Gaming and simulation is emerging very fast, particularly in the arena of training. Therefore, if we don't educate ourselves, if we don't skill ourselves in this domain, we are going to become obsolete very soon. The techniques which we have been using, training, teaching techniques which we have been using, they will stay. But at the same time, we need to gear up and tighten our belts for learning more in the area of simulation and gaming. So as I said, that simulation and gaming is being now used, it has already started, and it will be used more. Therefore, for young trainers, not only young, but I would say for all trainers in all domains of training, not restricting it to human resource trainers who are in the area of human resources, or what we call behavioral training, not restricting to behavioral training, but across domains of training, maybe even in technical training, even in the area of marketing, simulation gaming has been found to be very effective. Even in finance area, again, it has been found to be very useful. So besides HR, as we say ISTD, Indian Society for Training and Development, it does not, unlike NHR, it does not restrict itself to behavioral training only. It does not restrict itself to human resource training only. So we go across board. ISTD has trainers who have been working, who have been designing and conducting programs in various domains. Therefore, all of us need to learn and keep on learning. In fact, I wish that one more program of this sort would be repeated so that we can learn more about it. Why? Because it is emerging very fast. So we need to pick up the basics quickly so that more trainers in India can design and conduct training which is technology based. So technology, see, earlier we used to say CBT, computer based training. Now that's gone. So today more technologies are coming into fore, and during the times to come, same way, new technologies will enter. So we cannot run away from it. We have to have more interface with the emerging technologies so that we can design and conduct technology-based training as well. As I said, I repeat, this is the training techniques which I have been using won't go away. They will stay. But this is another dimension that needs to be learned. Today we talk about continuous learning, lifelong learning, and that is relevant for all of us as trainers. So with these words, I wish you all the best, and I hope that we will have a similar kind of program very soon, maybe after a few months. Thank you very much, and may God bless you all.
Thank you so much, sir. Indeed, this is the onset of many more such programs for the more orientation and more understanding. Thank you so much, sir. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Mandeep Gill, ma'am, Vice Chairperson ISTD Indore, for the vote of thanks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I hope I'm audible. Yeah. Okay. As we conclude this enriching regional convention, as well as the plenary sessions centered on the theme Simulations, Future of Learning and Development, on behalf of the ISTD Indore chapter, I extend my sincere thanks to our esteemed speakers of the plenary session, Dr. Ramesh Sharma, Ms. Himanshi Chandorkar, Mr. Siddharth Sarkar, Mr. Sumant Kumar, and Mr. Jiga for their profound insights which have broadened our understanding of the intricate dynamics of simulation, which can be applied for enhancing human capabilities in different domains such as technical, functional, and behavioral. Your expertise and wisdom will help us explore innovative pathways so as to harness the transformative potential of simulation in learning and development. I extend my gratitude to former National President and Honorable Vice Chancellor, SVV, Dr. Upinder Dhar, NC Member, Rector and Dean FDSR, Dr. Santosh Dhar, Chief Guest and National President ISTD, Ms. Anita Chauhan, for their constant encouragement, guidance, and support. I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to our session chairs, Dr. D.T. Manwani, CEO, Quantel Analytics Private Limited, and Dr. Vinod Temblikar, founder and CEO, Mantis, for expertly guiding us through the plenary sessions. Your expertise and felicitations have been invaluable in ensuring smooth and productive discussions. A special thanks to ISTD committee members as well as members of the Indore chapter for their active engagement and support. Lastly, I express my sincere appreciation to all the delegates as well as the participants for their active participation and thought-provoking questions contributing to the knowledge exchange throughout the sessions. Let us carry forward the insights gained today and strive to create a world where every individual has the opportunity to unlock their full potential. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, technical team. Yeah.
Thank you, technical team. With this, I, Dr. Shweta Keswani, member ISTD Indore, thank you everyone present here for the active participation in the ISTD Indore Regional Convention. We will meet sooner or later with more wonderful learnings. Thank you everyone for your valuable time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So we close the session here. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Parvez sir, thank you so much. We can close the session, sir.
ठीक है मैडम, okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.